Commissioners, November 29th meeting to order. Mike, please take the roll.
Commissioner Barrett.
Here.
Commissioner Fry.
Here.
Commissioner Meade.
Here.
Commissioner Pacharich.
Here.
Commissioner Vyers.
Here.
Commissioner Kelly.
Here. All right. On behalf of the Wheaton Park District Board of Commissioners, I want to welcome our guests to tonight's monthly board meeting. Many of you are here because of a recent mailing regarding the Cosley Zoo, and it's... Is this on?
It should be. I can hear you tapping it. Yeah, it's on.
Okay. I'll start over. On behalf of the Wheaton Park District Board of Commissioners, I want to welcome our guests to tonight's monthly board meeting. Many of you are here because of the recent mailing regarding the Cosley Zoo and its potential impact on taxes. Before we open up the meeting to public comment, I've asked our Vice President and Finance Chair, John Vyers, to offer an overview of the Park District's taxes. John?
Okay, thanks, John. Okay, since the mailer went out, we have received a number of emails from citizens, most of whom, one, were under the impression that the Park Board was going to take action tonight to approve an expansion at Cosley Zoo that would add $64 million in new taxes. And two, wanted us to know that they were opposed to that. Yeah, me too. Since the mailer broadly commented on Wheaton Park District's finances and taxation, I thought it might be helpful to review them. First, our last approved tax levy for 2022, and which was due and payable on this year's tax bill, was for $15,437,340. That's $15,400,000. This levy was subject to the property tax cap, which is set at 5% or the rate of inflation, whichever is less. Last year's cap was 5%. Last year, this board elected to raise your taxes 0%. This year's cap is also 5%. Even if we wanted to add $64 million in new taxes to this year's levy, we would not be allowed to by law. The most we could increase your taxes would be 5%. As an aside, we are proposing a 2% increase, not the 5% we could enact. In this high inflation era, where we could have raised your taxes 10% over the last 2 years, we are instead raising them 2%. Furthermore, whereas the 2022 levy, like I said, was $15 million and some change, the levy 10 years prior, from 2012, was $16 million. 15.4 last year, 10 years ago, $16 million. You are paying less in taxes in the Wheaton Park District than you were 10 years ago. Now, how did that happen? We paid off the Arrowhead referendum debt from 2005, which we refinanced in 2015. Now, this referendum debt did not expire without intention. Many municipal taxing bodies are tempted to reissue debt to the extent where they can keep taxes the same, but bring in millions of additional dollars in bond proceeds, while billing the referendum as tax neutral. In essence, turning a 15-year mortgage into a 30-year mortgage, but the monthly payment stays the same. Our board had discussions on the topic in the years leading up to our paying off the referendum debt. We consciously decided to let it expire without pursuing a tax-neutral referendum. We think it would be much more transparent to have future boards present referenda in a straightforward manner. Hypothetically, we want to build an indoor aquatic center at Rice Lake. We will issue X million in bonds, and it will cost you Y in new taxes. Let me head off the rumor mill. There has been no discussion of going to referendum on Cosley Zoo. If that had been our intention, we would have done it last year, when we could have raised millions in new bond revenue and sold it as tax neutral. Much more likely to pass in that type of situation. So, to recap on taxes, we retired the referendum debt in 2022, which meant that our 2022 tax levy declined year over year by over $3 million. The average resident's tax bill went down 17%. Now, forgoing 8% in allowable cost of living increases to your tax bill during a high inflation era, and forgoing a tax-neutral referendum, which would be likely to pass, these are not the hallmarks of a profligate park board looking to recklessly spend your tax dollars. This is a frugal board. This is a board aligned with taxpayers. It's also a board that is concerned with the financial soundness of the Park District. During the pandemic, we were faced with the shutdown and the financial reality that we had to refund all of our programming fees. We immediately huddled with staff to plan our response. The end result is that we ended the year with a small surplus, without having to dip into reserves, and without having to lay off any full-time staff. Now, I acknowledge that our tax rate is amongst the highest in DuPage County. This is not a recent phenomenon. It goes back to 1985, when I was still in high school. Voters back then approved a referendum to add a 25-cent increase to the tax rate for the recreation levy, resulted in a 64% increase in the total levy from 1985 to 1986. The increase moved the Park District's tax rate from the middle of the pack of DuPage Park Districts to near the top. The new revenues were used to add new facilities, such as the community center, and 2 new pools. Ultimately, the Park District grew to the point where the increased levy was needed to support operations. Basically, that increase is why you have the Park District you have today. Shortly after that tax hike, we enter the tax cap era. Every DuPage County Park District's levy grew at approximately the same rate, in line with inflation. Because the Wheaton Park District entered that era with a larger levy than most everybody else, we stayed in that position. It's like being at a car race. In 1985, the Wheaton Park District car zoomed to the head of the pack, and then there was an accident, and they waved the caution flag, and we've been going at the same place in the same position for the last 40 years. We have chosen to offset this by adopting the practice of slow growth, slower growth than the rate at which your home's assessed valuations grow. The results speak for themselves. Our tax rate in 2013 was 81 cents. In 2022, it was 57 cents. I have read that we have a slush fund out of which we will be funding the expansion. Now, we have capital reserves of $10,200,000, give or take. We are able to accumulate that much because our park district is staffed by people who proceed in an entrepreneurial and business-like fashion. We fund over half of our expenses through operations because people are willing to pay for their voluntary interactions with the park district, such as registration fees, fitness memberships, expenses, fitness memberships, greens fees, and special events. At the end of the year, we add up our revenues and expenses, and we have money left over. In the private sector, we call that profit, and government a fund surplus. We sweep some of that surplus to our capital account to pay for our projects, and we keep enough in reserves to provide for a rainy day, such as a prolonged economic downturn or, say, a global pandemic. This is a fiscally prudent thing to do. We create a capital spending budget each year, laying out our anticipated needs. We don't allocate capital funds to Arrowhead because that facility pays virtually all of its own expenses, including capital improvements. We do allocate to Cosley in the budget. But the zoo must share with our 54 parks and other facilities. Like I said, our current capital account is just over $10 million. It's nothing to sneeze at, but nowhere near $64 million. To recap, we can't just impose a $64 million tax increase on taxpayers. We are not going to referendum to raise it, and we don't just have it lying around. So where did that $64 million number come from? The mailer's author applied an inflation adjustment to $49 million and proposed new projects that was contained in a 2015 master plan for Cosley Zoo. The master plan was designed to be the keystone of a Cosley Zoo Foundation fundraising campaign to run for 2 or maybe 3 decades. It is a vision of what the future may look like if the foundation is successful in raising the money they aim to. But the master plan is subject to change, in part or in full, by this board or any future board. Each project, in order to become reality, must first be fundraised for, then plans developed, and then brought before future boards for approval or rejection, and then finally sent to bid and permitted. None of these future projects are being approved tonight. What we may be taking action on tonight will be a resolution directing staff to seek zoning relief from the city of Wheaton, which may then lead to our building a parking lot on the east side of Gary on property we bought with that intention in mind. In the end, It's all about a parking lot. That's all I have.
Thanks, John. All right. Mike, do you have the sheets?
I do not. Donna, would you grab the sign?
Donna, can we have the sheets? Well done. Okay. We have a significant number of residents here to address the board tonight, so here's how we're going to accomplish this. When I call your name, please come to the podium and state your name and address prior to speaking so your comments will be recorded. I realize our policy allows for 5 minutes of comment per speaker, and I'm asking if you can keep it to 3 minutes, it would be appreciated. That being said, those who need 5 minutes may certainly have it. I will also say that the public comment portion of the past few meetings has been conducted with the proper level of decorum and respect towards speakers on both sides of the issue. And I'm sure we can conduct this meeting in the same respectful manner. Reading from our policy manual. Public comments are important to the board. However, it's the board's policy not to take action on items until time has been taken to gather information and discuss all options. Lack of an agenda item, lack of action does not imply lack of interest on the issues. During the community input portion of the agenda, the board typically will ask residents to provide input prior to accepting input from non-residents. The purpose of public participation is to allow the public the opportunity to make a statement to the board. The purpose of public participation is not to provoke a debate with the board. Once an individual has spoken, that individual may not speak on the same issue again. Any limitation regarding addressing the board may be waived by a majority vote of the board. Except during public comment portion of the board of the regular, except during public comment portion of the regular board agenda or as stated in this role, no person other than the executive director or the district's attorney may address the board. Mike, do you just want to call
take
people
care
up?
of it.
Check them off.
Catherine McKee. For those providing community input, if you could please state your name and your address prior to beginning. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Catherine McKee, and I have lived at 1050 Oakview Drive in Wheaton since 2010. I want to thank you for this forum and for your service as commissioners. I love Cosley Zoo, and I'm glad to be a member. It's a beautiful green space on the corner of a busy intersection, and seeing the children and families there to visit is a joy. But I question the zoo's planning process that resulted in a vision for expansion that begins with a nearly $5 million 4-acre parking lot that is not even located at the zoo, but requires destroying beautiful green space across an already trafficked roadway. I'm a great fan of the Wheaton Park District, and several years ago I participated in the community input sessions held as part of the future planning of Memorial Park, where residents could provide comments and ideas for the planning process. I do not recall a similar process for the zoo's vision of expansion. We were invited to neighbor information sessions only to provide comments and ideas for planning. My concerns with the zoo's overall plan for expansion designed to generate public and private support across a loosely defined timeline for completion sometime in the future, yet somehow beginning with a parking lot. These concerns are based on more than 20 years professional experience, including corporate philanthropy and as a consultant specializing in funding for cultural organizations. And yes, zoos, aquariums, and gardens are considered cultural organizations. Among my key projects were the Cole Children's Museum move from a bowling alley in Wilmette to a 4-acre site in Glenview, the renovation of a small public park and playground located in Oak Park's historic district, and the Morton Arboretum's 4-acre children's garden. In each of these specific projects, public engagement was key and critical in planning and resulted in strong community and donor support. Further, in my experience with major capital projects, I don't know any that would begin with a parking lot without first gaining public support and committed funding for the majority of key exhibit and/or visitor experience projects, as well as parking. Cosley Zoo's approach with dates for completion of exhibits far into the future and a parking lot first, to me, just makes no sense and falls short of building future public or donor support. And finally, I am concerned that the visit research conducted several years ago to support the plan is no longer valid. As reported in Crain's and other Chicago area media, post-COVID audience research is showing that visitor engagement across several types of activities has changed and often decreased. I urge the Park District to take a closer look at the research, plans, and process used to get to this point, because the approach that has been taken is not going to get the community and donor support you will need to successfully fulfill the goals and expectations presented by zoo officials. In fact, I feel that a critical consequence of this action for a parking lot will damage Cosley Zoo itself, that if you build it, they will not come. Thank you for listening and for your consideration.
Thank you.
Paula Gould.
Good evening. My name is Paula Gould, and I reside at 945 Wheaton Oaks Drive. Thank you for your time. I just had a couple of comments, the first being about transparency. Mike, it's nice to see you again. It's been a couple of years since you were at our home, and I had walked and toured the zoo, and there were lots of signs of a campaign that were not consistent with what was being shown on the exhibit, including the dates. And Mike was nice enough to come over and address those concerns and say that he would be taking down some of the campaign signs or the renderings because they didn't know when they were going to be able to raise enough money to improve the zoo. The other observation that I've had is that being a resident for the last, my husband's been a resident since 2012 at Wheaton Oaks, and I myself have been a resident for the last 5 years. I walk around the zoo twice a day. We have a Labrador dog, and only on one occasion, maybe two, has the entire parking lot ever been filled to capacity. And those were primarily evening events where families are involved. What I do observe every day, up to 3 times a day, walking my dog, is that there are very young families, ages 0 to 3, and the parents, it takes a great deal of time to unload their car and their strollers, and they're immediately parked right by the entrance. And so that, just to give that some framework, kind of what Catherine had just said when my kids were young too, is you always want turnkey, you want to be as close to the entrance as possible. And perhaps there's other ways to consider rather than moving the parking lot, but having an area to drop off. And once again, I've never seen an employee in the parking lot surveying, it doesn't matter what time of the day I walk, to see if there's enough spots. I know the last meeting there was discussion from the executive director of the zoo claiming that staff goes out to count the cars, and I have never seen that occur. So I just wanted to reiterate my experience daily. And then secondly, the transparency, as I mentioned, Mike was nice to come over and address some concerns. This past summer, the only thing we received was a postcard that says, "Come to Neighbor Night." And it doesn't say it's about plans or what have you. We were out of the country, we couldn't make it. We've never received any email on the plans. Our backyard is the duck pond, so we're obviously the most impacted because that is our immediate backyard. And it's just disappointing that there was also a recent mailing, it sounds like a couple days ago. We've never received any mailing. And the only reason why we were aware of the plans for the zoo was because my husband happened to look at the agenda at one of the upcoming meetings or one of the past meetings in the last couple of months. Otherwise, we never would have known about this parking lot expansion. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Jeff Westergaard.
Thank you. My name's Jeff Westergaard. I live at 742 Ralph Court in Wheaton. I've been a Wheaton resident for 20 years. I'm the author of the mailing you referenced. I stand by the analysis. I stand by the facts that were on that mailing. I did the analysis myself. I printed that myself. I paid for the mailing myself. I had intended to highlight a number of things tonight, but I will keep it short per the request and highlight the following facts. All of the facts I'm going to quote come from either audited financial statements by the Wheaton Park District or peer park districts, Foundation 990 IRS filings, or information available on the either Wheaton Park District website, Cosley Zoo website, or that was obtained through a Freedom of Information Act. All right. So the master plan. The master plan is, in fact, $64 million in today's dollars. That's a 1.3 increase based on CPI analysis from the end of 2015 to September of 2023. The parking expansion, the relocation, is the first step of the master plan. The expansion of the zoo cannot take place without this parking lot being moved to where it's being proposed. Why we need a bigger zoo, why we need more attendance, is not explained in the master plan. Attendance at the zoo over the last 4 years, excluding the COVID year, it has been 157,000 visitors, 20,000 of which were residents. It's over a 6 times ratio of non-residents to residents. This parking lot in the grant application made to the state of Illinois was estimated to cost $4.3 million for a 26-lot space expansion. That's $165,000 for each one of those 26 spaces. The zoo operates annually over the last 5 years at a $1.4 million cost, of which $1 million is paid for by an allocation of property tax revenues. Property taxes are critical to the zoo's operation. It does not support itself. Over that same period of time, the Cosley Foundation has collected an average of $370,000 annually. Cosley Foundation's stated mission is to support the zoo and to lighten the burden, financial burden of the park district. So in that period of time, collecting $370,000 annually, they've only given $118,000 in grants to the district, to the zoo, and they've kept $250,000 annually. Over that time, $5 million has been paid by property taxpayers compared to $590,000 by the foundation. The foundation has increased its cash stockpile by $1.25 million, 133% increase over those 5 years. Can the park district collect taxes? Sure, absolutely. Should it collect as much tax as it does? That, I think, is the central question here. All right. At the end of fiscal year 22, the district had a total net position, which is essentially the total value of assets, a net worth equivalent, if you're talking about people, of $97.25 million. The cash and investment total was $32.5 million of that. $32.5 million in cash and investments. And that's an increase of over $10 million over the last 5 years. Cash and investment total is up 46%. The zoo is not run like the recreation programs. The zoo is not run like Arrowhead. That money is coming from taxpayers. All right. And this peer analysis, all right, these are 4 suburbs that I think most reasonable people would say, yeah, those are good peers to Wheaton. By every metric, Park District, Wheaton Park District taxes at what I think are shockingly higher rates. Around 2 times per resident, and residents are really what matter, I think. The tax rate itself is 1.5 to 2 times greater. And the result of that is that cash value, that cash and investment line that I just quoted, is also 2 to 3 times greater than these 4 peers. Something doesn't make sense here. And I'm going to ask you, as a board, to really look at this project. Do we really need to build a parking district, or a parking lot, excuse me? Do we need to spend $4 million to build a parking lot to get 26 extra spaces? That makes no sense to me. And finally, to really look at the level of taxation, and I agree a government should be run in a fiscally conservative way, yet healthy. But I'm not sure that these numbers are healthy. I think they're over the top. Thank you for my consideration.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Jeff Craig.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Craig. I live at 1329 North Carlton, and I've been a resident of Wheaton for 60 years. I'm sure it all started with everyone loves Cosley, but how can we make it even better? Before long, there was a Cosley Foundation, consultants, surveys, and of course, the master plan. While other park districts are struggling to stay within budget, it seems we can't find enough places to spend our tax revenue. Don't get me wrong, I believe we have great parks, pools, playgrounds, and programs, and I know that comes with a cost. Well, here's my cost. The Park District portion of my property tax last year was $975. Based on comparing the property tax rates available on the DuPage County Tax website, the same home as mine in Glen Ellen would have paid $676. That's $300 less. In Naperville, they would have been $540, over $400 less. That is a huge difference. At the last Park District meeting, it was mentioned this expansion plan would not require a tax increase, and we're already locked into annual CPI increases. Well, I'd like to suggest a tax decrease. We are all paying, all of us are paying hundreds more annually than our neighboring cities. And yet we're talking about spending more than $49 million to expand Cosley, a zoo everyone loves. And why do we love it? Because it's small, accessible, and family-friendly. Before the expansion of the current parking lot, which happened several years ago, Hawthorne Street across from Cosley was often used, usually on a Saturday, for overflow parking. Now, I know this is anecdotal, but I've never seen a car parked there since the lot was expanded, and I drive that street multiple times a day. I love Cosley Zoo. I take my grandkids there regularly. By the way, I've always been able to find a parking space. I drive past Cosley Zoo multiple times a day, almost every day, and at varying times during the day and evening because Gary Avenue is my closest north-south street. The only time I have ever seen the parking lot full is on Thanksgiving weekend because of Christmas tree sales. Let's be real. Lack of available parking is not what is driving this parking lot request, but rather the desire to expand animal exhibits into the current parking area, thus creating a need for a new parking area. During the last Park District meeting, an emphasis was placed on the fact that the public has over the years been kept up to date on what's coming. The Park District met with neighbors multiple times. Cosley put up large posters at the zoo. The Park District posted on their website. And this is true. But it was also emphasized, and again tonight was emphasized, that the master plan is just a framework and that it is subject to constant change, improvement, etc. And as a result, every plan we've seen along the way has changed to some degree and won't be what it looks like in the future. This is why many of us are a little late to the party and haven't been vocal up until now. There was never anything concrete to evaluate. Now there is. When I mention to folks that the zoo wants to add a bear and otter, everyone says, wonderful, I love bears and otters. Then I say, did you know they want to build a new parking lot across the street that will cost millions? They're always surprised. They say they had no idea. Then I say, did you know the Cosley Zoo master plan is supposed to cost $49 million, possibly $64 million in today's dollars? For the most part, their response is shock and outrage, and I'm not exaggerating. If you've been paying any attention, you've noticed there are more and more signs around town showing opposition to this type of expenditure. The voters are waking up. We want a voice. The taxpayers of this city need to be well informed of such a huge expenditure. How about we find out what the voters want? Let's take our time, have a referendum, and get it right. Here's a suggestion for wording of a referendum. Do you approve of the Park District expenditure of $49 million to pay for the destruction of the current Cosley Zoo parking lot, expansion of new exhibits into that space, and the building of a new parking lot across the street, not to exceed more than 150 spaces? If we have millions to spend on a parking lot, we certainly have a few $1,000s for a referendum to determine if it's even wanted by those who are footing the bill. Please do not approve or disapprove this expansion plan until we are all heard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kevin Needham, it appears that John Patterson will be reading a letter from Mr. Needham.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you for the time. My name is Kevin Needham. Not really, I'm John Patterson. I don't live at 1311 North Carlton, but Kevin does. He wishes that he could be in attendance tonight, but he's home caring for his son who is sick. I will now take on Kevin's persona. As you know, my wife, Christy, and I sued to void the Intergovernmental Agreement, or IGA, between the Park District and the City of Wheaton. We did so because the IGA is fundamentally unfair to the citizens of Wheaton who, so far as I can tell, are overwhelmingly opposed to the parking lot expansion plan and the planned expansion of the Cosley Zoo. Based on the agenda tonight, it appears that you will be moving forward with your application under the IGA. Otherwise, this project would not even be under consideration under the Wheaton zoning ordinance. You are using an agreement that you crafted 25 years ago just for projects like this, and you take away power from the City of Wheaton. How convenient. Christy and I have an additional reason to oppose the parking lot expansion plan, as do many of our neighbors. We have consulted with an appraisal expert who has confirmed the obvious. The proposed new parking lot will adversely impact the values of nearby homes, including ours. We never would have moved to 1311 North Carlton Avenue if we had known the Park District was going to build a parking lot right next to us. Now we're out of luck unless and until the Park District either gives up on the parking lot expansion plan or it is rejected by the Wheaton City Council, which is where this battle appears to be headed next. We certainly can't sell our house and move right now without incurring a substantial loss. I'd like you to think about this from our standpoint. How would you feel if this were happening in your backyard? Who says to say this won't happen to other Wheaton residents? All for a frivolous project that does not make any sense and will not drive any additional revenue that you think it will. No one is asking for this. No one wants it. You should use your money on projects that people are actually asking for. Respectfully, I would ask that the board listen to those opposing the Cosley Zoo master plan and parking lot expansion plan and reject them. People love the Cosley Zoo as it is. Let's keep it that way. Thank you, Kevin Needham.
Thank you.
Jennifer Humek, I hope I got that right.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jennifer Humeke, and I live at 1323 North Carlton Avenue. In 2007, I moved to quaint and established Wheaton from Naperville. Due to the high volume, traffic and congestion, retail expansion issues, and safety concerns for my children as my street became busier, Every single bit of land for miles in Naperville is bought up and developed into strip malls, parking lots, apartment complexes, frontage accesses, and it became a circus just to try to travel even a short distance. And it seems now as if the Wheaton Park District envisions marketing Cosley Zoo as yet another adult-centered money-making facility similar to Arrowhead or Cantini, but on the tiny little plot that is currently landlocked as far as any safe public access, if the expansion that includes the parking lot on the east side of Gary is indeed approved. The WPD proposes to attract more non-residents to Cosley at the continued expense of the Wheaton taxpayers, including by hosting or renting out regular events that are completely non-related to Cosley's mission statement regarding animals, conservation, or education, not to even mention children. Basically, let's talk wine tastings and weddings. Rented out by Cosley for up to a maximum, as stated on the WPD website itself, 500 total people, plus their vehicles, during evenings and weekends on the residential corner of Jewel Road and Gary Avenue. And another stoplight, forcing traffic to stop when it's already backed up as is and feeding traffic from both east and west on Prairie into an already backlogged road between Jewel and the three-way stop at Harrison. Late start Wednesdays, sports games, and concerts at Wheaton North, better leave early and plan on arriving late. And even more will be using the Wheaton Oaks subdivision as a shortcut. I am not against Cosley Zoo continuing to be Cosley Zoo. Please do not make Wheaton and Cosley into the circus like Naperville. It's actually even hard to tell what WPD envisions because it's been difficult and frustrating to research the proposed plans by the Park District. Wheaton residents should not need to financially support yet another PD facility such as this. There are already many existing revenue-generating alternative facilities. So many Wheaton residents are curious as to what is the justification of the WPD board to propose and approve such a plan for Cosley. I am aware of a recent petition circulating that has almost 2,000 signatures in opposition of the location of the alternate Cosley parking lot. We are simply here to ask to see things done differently and involving a two-way dialogue between the WPD and the residents of Wheaton, which we have not received. My family has and does enjoy Cosley, especially our annual trek to view the Christmas lights. The highlight of our entire season is when we take a picture in front of the purple dinosaur. Cosley is currently a precious gem as it already exists. It's illogical, dangerous, and mission contradicting to build an alternate parking lot in the proposed area. I am asking the WPD board to consider a parking lot location other than east of Gary Avenue if you, the WPD board, truly feel the need to expand the zoo at the Park District's own decision rather than the decision of your constituents. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Alan Sorrell.
Ooh. I got a book I'd like to read you here. Well, it's more of a poem. But, here, whatever. It's a pretty good zoo, said young Gerald McGrew, and the residents who pay for it seem proud of it too. But if I ran the zoo, said young Gerald McGrew, I'd make a few changes. That's just what I'd do. Visitors from Wheaton, taxpayers and stuff, parents and children just don't visit enough. They see their zoo as an adorable zoo, but they're wrong. I can change it. I want big and new. I'll draw up some plans, just me and my crew, and then we'll approve it. I'll push it right through. The taxpayers, who cares what they want to do? We have their money. We save it. Who knew? The master plan, it's been under the wraps. You can request it by FOIA to fill in the gaps. The zoo needs to make some revenue. Our new 6,000 square foot food and gift court will be a venue. People will linger and spend lots of money. Weddings, events, parties, music, wine. What? Conservation, you say? That doesn't really come into play. My new zoo, the big zoo, will make people talk. The huge empty parking lot will make people gawk. We'll charge parking fees and make people walk, maybe a quarter mile, then they will balk. But this is just a start. I'll do better, I swear. From the wild of Alaska, I'll bring back a bear. Most beasts are friendly, but in some cases, our fun run will be run from the animal races. Yes, said young Gerald McGrew, this is my zoo. I don't take opinions, I'll push it right through. Now, I guess, silly like Dr. Seuss memes aside, when I graduated with a degree in computer science, I thought I'd be able to at least rent an apartment in the town I grew up in. And as it turns out, that's not true. Part of that's because of inflation, and that's out of your control. But part of it's because you're actively competing for residential space, and you're trying to rezone it as commercial space. And yeah, I remember playing in that little area. It's definitely not like a wetland. It's right next to the marsh, so historically it would have been a wetland if you went back like, a long time. But it was a place where kids definitely play. Lots of kids from the neighborhood go in there, and they play like, chase, catch, whatever. It's just empty area where kids can play. And now it's going to be a dangerous parking lot. Yeah, I guess that's all I got to say. Thank you. Oh, yeah, and also the meeting's 5 o'clock. You work, you can't really show up.
Matt Safransky.
Good evening. My name is Matt Safransky. I live at 815 West Elm. My family is lifelong residents of Wheaton. I'm also a proud supporter, a volunteer board member, and president of the Cosley Foundation. I'm here to speak in support of the zoo parking lot. I, like many others, moved to Wheaton because of the great schools, the welcoming community, and a thoughtful city government. Over the years, the city of Wheaton, the Wheaton Park District, have carefully and thoughtfully taken care of us in the community, while our needs and population have changed. I remember when Rice Lake Pool first opened in 1989, and shortly thereafter, the new community center. A few years after that, an expanded Arrowhead golf course, banquet hall, and clubhouse was envisioned, scrutinized, and successfully opened in 2006, becoming a vibrant event space for weddings, fundraisers, golf outings, even murder mystery productions. In 2012, Cosley Zoo opened an exciting new bobcat exhibit with the help of the Cosley Foundation, driving new visitors to the zoo and bringing smiles to many. These are just a few of the projects the Park District I've seen directly benefiting this community. As you all know, Cosley Zoo is a beloved Wheaton institution. That said, the zoo's current parking lot is inadequate to meet the zoo's existing visitors. The parking lot is often overcrowded, with visitors finding it difficult to find an open spot. The Park District presented this parking issue to the Cosley Foundation, asking for its help raising funds for this project, which we have done. Parking has been an issue for well over a decade. That is why, through thoughtful planning, the Park District and the Foundation have acquired land across Gary Avenue to address this inadequate parking situation. A new parking lot would provide a number of benefits for the zoo and the community. It would make it easier for people in the community to visit the zoo. Second, it could lead to increased attendance and revenue for the zoo and our local businesses. Third, a new well-planned parking lot would improve traffic flow in and around the zoo. That would make it safer for everyone and more convenient. Finally, the parking lot would create much-needed space for future for Cosley. In conclusion, a new parking lot is a necessity and a worthwhile investment for the future of Cosley. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Peter Buckle.
Hi, Peter Buckle, 1003 South Gables Boulevard. As someone who moved to Wheaton in the last 5 years, I want to say a few words regarding the Park District and the zoo. We chose Wheaton for its high standard of living, and the Park District certainly contributes to that. The zoo is part of the uniqueness of this community. Access to the zoo is important. Parking right now is an issue. Several times we have turned away because the parking lot was full. It's an issue that needs to be addressed, whether in this form or in another form. I urge you to look at the proposal and pass it forward. Thank you very much for your time.
Thomas Knight.
Thank you. My name is Tom Knight. I live at 795 West Hawthorne Boulevard in Pioneer Terrace, short distance from Causley Zoo. My wife and I have raised 4 kids there since 1976, and we have dogs. I heard someone else talk about walking their dogs. For many years, we have walked our dogs down Hawthorne, a short block in the evening, a long walk in the morning, often to Lincoln Marsh, with which we were very well acquainted, down Carlton Avenue, or Carlton, to the end of it, which takes us right past the east end of the area where the parking lot is supposed to go. And then as we keep walking and the road turns west, we end up going to the end, which puts us right between Lincoln Marsh and the area where the parking lot would be. And for many years, our dogs have stopped and alerted at that eastern area, just east of where the parking lot would be. And you can tell when they're alerting to wild animal scents because they dress it differently. They sent wild animals there coming from that area where the parking lot would be. When we go along McCarlton to the end, they alert likewise there. On many occasions, we have seen deer, coyote, fox. We've heard numerous hooting owls coming from the trees in that area, the big old trees that Causley wants to take down. And in fact, we had, the last meeting that we had here, I think, was on October 25th. And the night before, when we walked down Carlton, we watched with our dogs 3 deer come right past the Needham's house on the south side of Carlton and cross the street and go right past Buddy and Lee's house, which is right by the area, headed right into the area where the parking lot would be. We've seen owls come out of those trees there, pouncing on small animals. We've seen wildlife. And what you need to know, if you don't live close like we all do and walk that area, the Lincoln Marsh is a corridor, and the animals should come as no surprise to anyone from a zoo or who thinks about animals. They aren't going to confine themselves to the zigzagging borders of the technical legal Lincoln Marsh. They're going to go that corridor up to north side, up to where the dumpsters are during the winter by the apartments and so forth, and back. And we have seen animals that we are quite sure take the easy terrain, which is through that nice meadow and grove, past in the neighbors' backyards, and cross over Carlton, because they're going to Northside Park Lake. And that's, it makes my heart sink to think that a zoo that espouses as part of its mission that it would encourage the lifelong interest of people in animals in their natural habitat is about to do something that will really impair the natural habitat. They're right adjacent to Lincoln Marsh and that wetland, and it's the wetland life. You know, there's a sign in Lincoln Marsh, where we also walk our dogs, on the east end. Take a walk sometime and you'll see what you say about the wetland areas, because that sign, which is there to give information to hikers, says that unfortunately, Illinois has lost 90% of its wetlands. And you know how they lose it? Insidiously, incrementally, by little infringements like this proposed parking lot would be. That's what happens. 90%, you said it, your seal is on the sign, and it says 90% of our wetlands are gone. And now, right next to the wetland, in the corridor that those wildlife animals use, you want to turn it into a parking lot. And it also made my heart sink when I heard you say early in this meeting, it's all about a parking lot. We don't know if we're going to spend $64 million in 10 years or 20 years down the road. We want a parking lot. The parking lot is a bad idea, because if you look at the master plan, on that master plan itself, the planners said, by the way, I have a written version of this. I knew I couldn't cover this in 5 minutes.
You need to wrap it up.
And I
well
will,
past 5
and I'll
minutes.
leave this to you, because the sites are there, but in that, let's see, yeah, that's it. In that master plan, the planners said, while they were deciding about parking, that the problem is to have an access between the parking lot and the zoo itself, and they recommended initially an overpass and to settle on a tunnel because they said it would avoid the danger of crossing Gary Avenue. And I guess I do have to wrap it up, but I'll call your attention, I hope you'll read it, to the safety issue, because that's probably the one that's most in my heart.
Thank you.
Sharon Beersdorf.
Good evening, Sharon Beiersdorf, 766 Ralph Court. I just wanted to make a quick comment on Tom's sighting of animals. About a week ago, I actually saw a buck at Northside Park. So you talk about the corridor and you talk about the relationship of Northside Park to the proposed parking lot. It's nearby. I would like to take a moment to recognize the efforts of both the Wheaton Park District and Cosley Zoo in their daily operations. Wheaton Park District has maintained and preserved existing parks, supplied Wheaton residents with various enriching programs and services. They continue to operate facilities and host various events throughout the year. Cosley Zoo has demonstrated individual care and enrichment to animals. They promote animal interest programs for families, kids, scouts, and school groups. They have hosted many special events inviting connections between people and animals. All of these points are commendable. As a longtime resident, I hope Wheaton Park District and Cosley Foundation can also invest in community input. I decided to take a look at community input and wanted to see what Wheaton residents wanted from their tax-funded district. I looked at the August 2016 Wheaton Park District Attitude and Interest Survey prepared by the Office of Recreation Park Services, University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. Under satisfaction of facilities, 98% of respondents stated they were satisfied or very satisfied with Cosley Zoo. Support for projects with a tax increase, 444 respondents ranked highest support for an indoor multi-pool facility at 25%. Second to last, out of 8 projects, only 11% would support renovation and modernization of Cosley Zoo. Under comments regarding Cosley Zoo, a statement reads, and I quote, "Cosley is a great neighborhood zoo, doesn't need to compete with big zoos. It's a hidden gem," end of quote. The most recent survey to date from the Wheaton Park District, December 2020, labeled the Stakeholder Survey, was obtained via Freedom of Information Act. This survey was conducted in partnership with Elmhurst College. This survey is more lean than the 2016 survey because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Again, under facilities, respondents stated they were very satisfied with Cosley Zoo, second only to Arrowhead Golf Club, among 9 facilities listed in the survey. I bring these surveys to your attention because the Wheaton Park District Board needs to listen to what Wheaton taxpayers really want based on the results of these surveys. In the Board of Commissioners General Practices Manual, adopted November 3, 2010, and last reviewed and amended January 15, 2020, it is clear that, quote, the general improvement of the quality of life for the Wheaton residents is the objective. Under, quote, statement of objectives, first page of the Practices Manual, there is much rhetoric about this, but what about the focus on communication and dialogue with residents? The Wheaton Park District Commissioners are elected officials to serve its constituents, yet it is difficult to get a prompt and sometimes no response to emails that are sent to the collective email address. I am pleased to say that I did receive a phone call from Mr. Bernard after 2 failed attempts on September 26th and October 9th regarding a response from an email directed to Cosley Zoo. I, however, never received a reply from the collective email of commissioners@wheatonparks.org in response to an email sent on October 9th. I presented the question if there were alternative plans considered for the proposed Cosley Zoo parking lot. We understand your desire to connect people with the natural world. However, the Cosley Zoo experience as it exists is appropriate for a locally funded facility. Most of the patrons are young families looking to enjoy an educational and accessible visit. Based on the surveys, there is not enough public interest to support a larger zoo with overwhelming amenities. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yvonne Rusin or Beth Gunther.
Hi, my name's Yvonne Russin. Can you hear me okay? I live at 157 Donata Drive in Wheaton. I'm a mom of a disabled adult child who has Down syndrome, and she visits Cosley Zoo often. She attends with many of her friends on outings with Stars Disability Ministries and College Church and WDSRA. Many of Abby's friends have both physical and intellectual disabilities, and that is why I am concerned and want to address the handicap parking at the new proposed parking lot at Cosley Zoo. I'd also like to note that 2 years ago, I took my mother, who was then 90 years old, to the Cosley Zoo, and the accessible handicap parking was perfect for her. My brother, my sister, his daughter, my granddaughter, and my adult daughter with Down syndrome also came, and we came in 3 cars, and we had no problem finding a parking space. I attend Wheaton Sports Center several times a week. Never do I see that parking lot full. So the whole premise of we need more parking, I've never been turned down, ever in the 29 years I've lived here. I've never had a problem. I don't understand why this parking needs to be expanded and why we need to go backwards in time and make it non-accessible to people with handicaps. The proposed relocation of handicap parking across the street from the entrance of the Cosley Zoo raises concerns about the accessibility and convenience for individuals with disabilities. Handicap parking spaces are designed to provide equitable access and reduce barriers for those facing mobility challenges. Moving the handicap parking across the street would require individuals with disabilities to cross a busy street, posing safety risks. This change would not only inconvenience them, but also compromise their well-being. By keeping the handicap parking close to the zoo entrance, we ensure the safety and convenience of individuals with disabilities, allowing them to fully enjoy their zoo experience. If we don't speak up for them, who will? They aren't capable of speaking up for themselves. We've got signs all over Wheaton about Black Lives Matters, about people wanting to use restrooms for whatever gender they might feel they are, et cetera. That's fine. They can speak up for themselves. Who's to speak up for these people? Accessibility is a fundamental right, and it is crucial to ensure that individuals with disabilities have equal access to public spaces. The current placement of handicap parking near the zoo entrance reflects a commitment to inclusivity. Relocating the parking area across the street would create an unnecessary barrier, effectively limiting the ability of individuals with disabilities to visit the zoo independently. Retaining handicap parking near the entrance is essential for preserving the dignity and independence of individuals with disabilities. The convenience of close parking enables them to navigate from their vehicles to the entrance with minimal assistance. Such autonomy is crucial for fostering a sense of empowerment and inclusion within our society. The current placement of handicap parking near the zoo entrance sends a powerful message of inclusivity and respect for individuals with disabilities. It demonstrates that our community values accessibility and recognizes the contributions and rights of all members. By relocating the parking across the street, we risk undermining the important symbol of inclusiveness and potentially affecting the perception and reputation of Cosley Zoo. I also want to note, I love this zoo. I go there all the time. I've been going there for 30 years. And I travel a lot. I've been in many, many countries, and I love their zoos, too. And you know what? I've never seen a zoo go backwards in terms of their accessibility. You wouldn't really consider China a place that's inclusive. I've been to the Beijing Zoo. That zoo is inclusive. You can park up front with a disabled adult or child and get into that zoo without any problem and see their pandas, et cetera. So I can't believe we're going backwards in time on this one. It's just shocking. The proposed relocation of handicap parking across the street from the Cosley Zoo raises significant concerns regarding safety, equal access, independence, and the symbolism of inclusivity. It is crucial to retain handicap parking near the zoo entrance to ensure the convenience, dignity, and well-being of individuals with disabilities. By preserving equitable access, we foster a more inclusive society that celebrates diversity and demonstrates compassion for all its members. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sylvester Burkhart.
Yeah, is it up or?
Rob, you need to open the aperture on the projector. You might need to hit the power again, maybe it went to sleep. Worked so well.
You know, in lieu of time, I can just spare you guys and we can get started.
Somebody else go ahead of you while we get this up if you want.
Yeah, sure. That would be I would be fine with that.
It's up, Sylvester.
Oh, yeah, that's me.
Their presentation?
Yeah, if that's the first page.
Yeah, it is. So I'm Sylvester Bernhardt. I live at 1317 Carlton Avenue. And on the website, it says the Wheaton Park District is committed to open government. Yet we have had to submit numerous FOIA requests to begin to understand the details of your Cosley Zoo expansion plan. This includes two key documents, the Cosley Zoo Master Plan and the Strategic Business Plan. Both documents are from the summer of 2015, nearly a decade ago. After reviewing these documents, it is very clear why the Wheaton Park District would not want these open to the general public. The master plan, next slide.
You can hand him the mouse,
Yeah,
Rob,
sure.
and he can, no, the mouse.
The mouse, I'll take the mouse.
If it's a PDF, you need the mouse.
So the master plan is a result of workshops between the consulting firm, Cosley Zoo, and the Wheaton Park District. Nowhere in the document are there any references to input from the residents of this expansion proposal. Maybe that is because, according to the Wheaton Park District surveys, 97% of residents are satisfied with their zoo. Most notably, in the Cosley Zoo Master Plan, there is reference to options for crossing the road from the planned parking lot on the east side of Gary Avenue. The planning team, for very good reasons, was looking at alternatives. On page 13, it states the problem would be in connecting the zoo and the parking service together to allow passage between the two parcels without the danger of crossing Gary Avenue. On page 35, it states the ADA accessible ramp and tunnel will safely provide zoo visitors access from the east side of Gary Avenue to the new entry complex on the west side of Gary Avenue without pedestrian or vehicular conflict. After an overhead bridge plan was nixed because of clearance issues for trucks and emergency vehicles, the plan for a pedestrian tunnel was conceived and became part of the plan approved in 2017. However, as we all know, the Wheaton Park District has changed direction since then and has decided that the safe passage across Gary Avenue actually is not a priority, and pedestrian vehicular conflict is worth the risk for the endless possibilities of revenue generation. Which brings me to the strategic financial plan. First, let's discuss admission cost. According to the plan on page 57, it states discounted versus free admission should be introduced and gradually implemented. It also states to remain sustainable over the next 10 years, timely increases in admission fees will be a critical financial strategy. In 2016, you asked your residents how they felt about paid admission to Cosley Zoo, to which the vast majority was opposed. In the next survey, you could consider asking residents if they prefer their current beloved Cosley Zoo that residents visit for free, kind of as a perk for paying the highest park district taxes in the surrounding area, or a paid experience for a few extra exhibits. And you should ask them about how they feel about paid parking, because on both pages 47 and 58, the idea of paid parking is explored to maintain financial viability. So this brings me to the plan that has many other ideas for revenue generation. Additional paid programming for enhanced experiences after you have paid your admission fee. Upcharge fees to purchases made labeled as conservation fee, after-hours event and facility rental, and of course, expanded food and retail services, which on page 37 of the business plan states that this is necessary to be able to offer food and retail services that complement the sophistication of its desired audiences. We have many questions regarding the long-term financials in the business plan. For example, how are the projections for increased attendance derived? What are the details for the increased costs for new exhibits, including the river exhibit, which, according to page 29 of the Cosley Zoo Master Plan, has substantial life support requirements? What currently adjustments have been made in the analysis to account for inflation over the last 8 years? And probably the biggest question in our minds is regarding the low operating margins reflecting on the plan. What happens when you don't hit those projections? Are you operating at a loss? What current and future programming for residents is going to be cut to reallocate funds to a zoo that, only 16% of the visitors are from Wheaton? At a minimum, the residents of Wheaton deserve to see updated plans with the latest information, and to have these plans available openly for questions and debate. And we deserve, like many of your peers in neighboring towns, that you will let the residents decide, if you're so confident in your plans and that this is for the betterment of Wheaton residents, let's put it on a referendum and vote.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Liz Westergaard.
Hey, I see a new face up here, and I don't know who it is.
Oh, this is our corporate attorney.
Oh, okay, thank you. Liz Westergaard, 742 Ralph Court. I am here today to ask you to reflect on your role as board members of the Wheaton Park District. Per your website, the Wheaton Park District's mission is to enhance the quality of community life through a diversity of healthy leisure pursuits for its residents. Its vision is to commit to service excellence, financial stability, and an enriched quality of life for its residents. And its values include integrity, adaptability, commitment, kindness, service, and yes, growth and fun. Your responsibilities as Wheaton Park District board members include ensuring honest and accountable representation. I believe you are failing in this area. This costly zoo expansion has felt like a secret board mission where only very carefully selected information is made public. And items like unsafe crossings, a return to paid admission, upcharge fees, parking fees, and shaky financial projections, amongst other things, are muted. There is a lack of transparency, and there is a lack of desire for community input. We are still baffled why a zoo that's 97% of Wheaton residents are satisfied with and is only frequented by 1 in 6 visitors is such a high priority for you, when the residents who are paying the taxes are actually asking for dog parks, neighborhood parks, playgrounds, more wellness, and sports programming. I take my grandson, my 18-month-old grandson, to Cosley Zoo every day when he visits me, and we have a lovely time. I love Cosley Zoo. I run through Northside Park every morning with my neighbor. I love Northside Park. I love Wheaton Park District. But this plan has no public input. It's just wrong from the very start. As a resident of the surrounding area that will be directly impacted by the parking lot, my focus early on was much different. It was a not in my backyard thing, but if one positive thing has come of this expansion plan, it is that it has opened my eyes to the lack of representation that we, the taxpayers, have from the board. This has allowed us to educate other residents regarding our high park district taxes compared to surrounding areas in relation to what we are getting in return. I did some Google searches to see what is going on in the surrounding communities. I am not being dramatic. Glen Ellen made a referendum request for $15.9 million to repair and improve facilities. Not only did they put this to a referendum, but they thanked the community. We are so grateful and would like to thank every member of the Glen Ellen Park District community for your continued support. In Elmhurst, the Park District Board of Commissioners presented the implementation plan and financial options for addressing Vision 2020 large-scale projects. The 6 projects were a direct result of community feedback. After reviewing the financial plans, the Park Board decided to pursue a voter survey that will determine the level of community support to fund the 6 projects through a referendum. In Naperville, they produced an entire 690-page master plan for the whole park district. They clearly show the direct correlation of community input to the master plan and offer an open house to review it and answer any questions. I have to admit, I was a little jealous and I was a little sad and angry knowing we are paying substantially more than the residents of these communities and we don't have any input. Today, I ask that you be transparent with the community on all aspects of the plan, and you put this to a referendum vote. If you are confident this is right for Wheaton residents, let the people who are paying the taxes decide. I hope you will consider this request. Thank you.
Bruce Beiersdorf.
My name is Bruce Beiersdorf. I live at 766 Ralph Court in the Pioneer Terrace subdivision. I'm reading a prepared message by Christy Needham, who I believe lives at 1311 Carlton, and I'll editorialize a little bit to keep it more brief. I'd like to request that the Park District hold off on approving this $5 million project until the need for parking can be adequately measured and demonstrated. This project has been in the works since at least 2017, and yet the Cosley Zoo has not ever kept track of the number of cars in the parking lot. During the last meeting, Sue Walgren was asked how they measure the need for parking. She replied, quote, "We do a detailed visitor count on members of staff, have eyes on the lot, and note when it is full every day. Based on this information, Cosley Zoo has made the assertion that the lot is full, quote, at least a third of the days every year, although by their own count, the days full have been steadily decreasing almost every year since 2016. We have 60 households in our neighborhood. Collectively, we drive past the zoo multiple times a day, every day, weekdays and weekends, at all different times throughout the day. And on myself, I walk by the parking lot on my way to the sports center. The only days we've ever seen the lot full are when they're selling Christmas trees. So when we heard the claim that the lot was full on 110 days this year, we were astonished. We wanted to see the data for ourselves, so we submitted a Freedom of Information Act request for the parking data. We asked to see the hourly logs collected by Cosley Zoo workers to record the number of cars in the lot by the hour. The response? The Park District has no records responsive to your request. The only information that Cosley Zoo systematically and reliably tracks is the number of visitors per day. On these visitor logs, they're included in F, indicate the lot was full. We reviewed these visitor log, and we have a lot of questions, but I'll skip that part. But basically, they're asking, how do they collect the parking lot data when they're sitting at the ticket booth? We never see anybody actually walking around counting the cars. She continues, we took a trip to the Cosley Zoo and looked at the parking lot from the ticket booth, and you know what we discovered? You cannot see the entire parking lot from there. So which staff members are responsible for surveying the parking lot? Where do they do it from? How often do they do it? How many cars are turned away each day? Is it 1, 5, or 100? How much more parking do you actually need? Please don't approve the plan to spend $5 million on a new parking lot that requires a water retention system beneath it based on a need that cannot be quantified or reliably demonstrated, especially when there are significantly less expensive alternatives available. And allow me to, now this is my own summary. Parking is rarely a problem. Cosley is using this as a lame excuse to expand the parking lot onto a difficult-to-access area so they can expand Cosley into something it was never intended to be. Thank you.
Marilyn Moritz.
Marilyn Moritz, and I live at 1138 Wheaton Oaks Drive in Wheaton. And I moved here about 2 years ago, having lived 50 years in St. Paul. And I think I mentioned that last time I spoke. And I came away from this last meeting I called a friend of mine who was a Michigan friend, a University of Michigan friend, who had lived in a small town, St. Joe, Michigan. And I said, you know, I went to this meeting last night, and the whole town seemed to be divided. On one side, they were just complaining about everything, and the other side was trying to support this. And it seemed a little strange to me. I don't remember things like that in St. Paul. And she said, no, those are more characteristics of small towns, which I did never think I was actually moving into, because I always thought it'd be fun to live in a small town, and I didn't think this was particularly a small town. But I am sort of, as a librarian, I must say that I appreciated the
Can you speak into the mic?
Dr. Seuss creation. I thought that was at least a little bit creative and fun. And I have been sort of saddened by the quality of the remarks about why this shouldn't be, because it seems like a lot of them are not atypical of misinformation, trying to get away, trying to get your way, and being somewhat disrespectful to a group of people that serve, I think, probably a lot of time and put a lot of interest and their heart into this process. So I just, I don't like conflict very well as a person, and so it's uncomfortable to see this kind of transaction. With 52,000 people in Wheaton? The population? Yeah, 2%, 2,000 in a petition isn't a lot, but maybe a referendum would be needed to see that there is a lot of support for this. I think it could be surprising. So, well, thank you for letting me speak. Thank you for doing your job, and I hope this can be settled in a more harmonious way than what we see going on in our government all the time. Thanks.
Thank you.
Phyllis Geyer.
I'm Phyllis Geyer. I live at 1202 Wheaton Oaks Drive. I'm on the Cosley Foundation board, and I feel like that I have learned a lot, maybe about both sides. I'm serious about taxes. I pay taxes, but I don't begrudge paying taxes, and I thank you for your explanation at the beginning. I thought that was a very excellent overview from what I understand about taxes. I am very supportive with my time and my money to Cosley Zoo, because the foundation is working to raise money so that the tax body doesn't have to pay for the majority of what is being spent for Cosley Zoo in the future, now and in the future. And this is fairly new in the last 1 or 2 or 3, 4 years, that this has been more active out in the community and trying to get people to do it. So I don't know, some of the things I'm just confused about, some of the comments I hear. I don't like to pay taxes, and I understand, I fully believe I have empathy and understanding for people who don't, but I truly believe that the Wheaton Park District uses our money wisely. When I walk around I don't have children, but I walk in the playgrounds, I walk my dog, I do lots of things in the city. And I believe that they use quality materials. They aren't going to have to be rebuilding it in 2 or 3 years, because they do their due diligence and use quality materials when it comes to buying something. This is my opinion. I can't speak for how some people feel. Some people might not agree with me. We moved to Wheaton in 1966, and there have been lots of changes to the city of Wheaton and the Park District since that time. Lots of changes. There was one pool, no arrowhead, no rec center, and there's not always been agreement through the process of getting those things to happen. And my memory's still decent. I can remember those. I understand that people don't want parking lots near their backyards. I and my neighbors live very close to a building and parking lot expansion, very close. It was passed because they felt approval was in the best interests of all or most of the citizens. I thank you for your willingness to look at the facts, understand the emotions, and make the best decisions for all of the citizens of Wheaton. Thank you.
Thank you.
Diane Gallo.
Hello, my name's Diane Gallo. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. Appreciate it. For 25 years, I have enjoyed being part of the community. I live at 504 West Prairie. I've been taking my children to the zoo. They're grown now, but I have very fond memories of getting pumpkins there. We've got lots of pictures from the fall there, the Christmas tree lot, hot chocolate, an excuse to warm up and look at the gift shop. A lot of great memories of the zoo. Love it. I have to tell you, though, I am very disappointed and concerned about the master plan, in particular with the parking lot. As others have kind of spoken to this, and this is not coordinated, so you can understand, I think somebody made a comment last week or the last month, that this was all coordinated. I don't mean to be repetitive, but I'm questioning, is there really a need? I live nearby. I walk, run, or drive by Cosley Zoo on Gary Avenue almost every day, if not daily. And I have only seen it full, both parking lots, only seen it full during special events. I have paid more attention as of late, thinking, gee, maybe I just haven't been paying attention. And so several Saturdays, beautiful days in the fall, pumpkins everywhere, the secondary lot wide open, spots still available in the main lot. You would think a day like that, beautiful September, October day, that there would be, people would be driving around looking for parking. It didn't happen. Even this past weekend with the Christmas trees, beautiful day, right after Thanksgiving holiday. That second lot was not completely empty, but only probably 20% full. So I have to tell you, I'm really concerned about it. So my first thought was, gee, I'm really surprised by the 1/3 of the days out of the year. To me, seeing it, there's lots of spaces available. I recognize it's anecdotal on my part, but again, I go by there regularly. I think the board needs to really pressure test this and do its due diligence. And when I heard about the FOIA request and the response, that really gave me pause. Somebody mentioned this before. There has to be an understanding of the data collection. What is the data? The method of collection data. That's what due diligence is. This whole thing centers around the need for the parking lot. That's the foundation of this whole thing, okay? If the problem exists, how big of a problem is this? Again, that requires data. If it is a problem to be solved, how should it be solved? Who benefits? What is the best solution? Are there alternatives? And somebody mentioned last week, has there been any creative thinking around alternatives that are less intrusive to the environment, less intrusive to the community, are now creating an issue for the wildlife? Some things off the top of my head. If for special events, how about having a trolley service? Wouldn't that be fun? Find alternative parking downtown, tie it in with the restaurant. My understanding is that there's land that the Park District owns on the west side of Gary Avenue. Has that been explored? I could go on and on. Valet service for peak times. I'll say something about the safety. I walk my dogs like others, or just running by there. Going to the Jewel and Gary Avenue at that stoplight, even at the stoplight, it's a little tricky. It's a little dicey getting across that street, even just myself and as an adult. Okay, so thinking of when I was a younger mother and I had children in strollers or littles on my hand, I would not want to do that. Imagine yourself doing that with little children crossing the street, stoplight or not. It is a busy road, and as others have mentioned, there's a lot going on with the school and lack of other north-south routes. Transparencies, others have spoken to. This is disappointing, I have to say. So let me just conclude with a couple other comments. Please take a pause, step back. Calls for additional input, widespread in the community, is warranted. Please take a pause, get widespread input. Truly inform the residents, let them air their voice outside of just these hearings. And my last is a quote that I saw. Someone once said, "Don't cling to a mistake just because you spent a lot of time and money making it." Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Donna, is there another sheet up there with signatures on it. Could we have that? The next speaker is Hope Alberg.
Hi, my name is Hope Alberg. I live at 1104 Gary Court in Wheaton. I've lived here for about 44 years. I've always loved the Park District. I have 4 kids. We've always used the Park District. I've always sang your praises with all that you've done. But I've got to say, this Causey Zoo, I just don't see it. I drive down Gary Avenue every day, several times a day sometimes. I have never seen that parking lot full, ever. I just, I hope you take a pause. I hope you really look at what's happening and listen to what the people are saying. I talk to people a lot. With the job I have, I don't know anybody that's supported it at all. So I oppose it, and I'll keep it short and sweet.
Thank you.
Glenn Kakovic.
Hi there, Glenn Kakovic at 320 North Ellis Avenue. Been in Wheaton, same house with my family since 1997. We love Causey Zoo. We love the Park District. I applaud every single one of you that works to contain costs and become more efficient and more effective at running the various enterprises of the city of Wheaton. Just found out about this the other day. Causey is, as advertised, a gem. However, what I would suggest to everybody that is in the decision-making process is not only that you slow down, but you think about a couple things. Number one, if less than 20% of the foot traffic that goes through Causey is a resident of Wheaton, why is Wheaton footing the bill as taxpayers? Why? Number two, we know there's the law of unintended consequences in everything we do. That law of unintended consequences means, yeah, it's $4.3 million to build the parking lot, but it's another $25 million because we didn't think through this or this or this. And that law of unintended consequences is very frustrating. Being a longtime resident of Wheaton, my home has finally hit the same value that it had in 2007. Anybody else here in the same boat? Yes. Yeah. But yet my taxes have nearly doubled. Now think about that. That is extremely painful. That has nothing to do with the beauty of Causey. That has nothing to do with the beauty of the Park District. It has everything to do with common sense. We need to be smart in where we spend money and why. When John said Arrowhead funds itself and then some, man, that is music to my ears. How about you guys? Yep. Yeah? The point of this is I love Causey. My family loves Causey. I think we all love Causey. We need to take a step back, take this very big picture plan that was developed, and now what we need to do is take it and start to analyze it and make sense out of it. And as all of my bosses in the corporate world, and my mother used to say to me as well, if you can't afford it and work within budget, don't do it. Or find another way to use your resources to get it done. And that's what I would propose to all of you as decision makers. We love Causey, but enough is enough sometimes. It really is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Susan Varsak.
Hello, good evening. My name is Susan Varsak. I live at 520 North Main Street in Wheaton. I am a mom of 3 kids, a frequent visitor to Causey Zoo. And I will join the resounding, I love Cosley. And I think that that is, a message that we have heard here tonight. I want to also thank Commissioner Vyers for your history of the Wheaton Park District taxation system and the context for the master plan. I would like to use my public comment briefly to just draw a bright line between the management team of Cosley Zoo and its loved place in the community. So one of the byproducts of the slow workings of the local government of the Wheaton Park District is that there are actually many commissioners here have served for many years on this board. And your management of Cosley Zoo, as well as the staff's management, as well as Sue Walgren's management, which has persisted for decades, that's why Cosley is beloved. And so I would just raise to people's consciousness that the suggestion that Cosley have a path forward comes only from that management team. And so that management team has created the zoo that we all say we love. And so while I hear the plea to think it through, my personal perspective, having been a volunteer and in and around an observation of the situation, is that this excellent management team is thinking it through. Sue Walgren always thinks things through. And I would my plea would be that we give each other the benefit of the doubt. Thank you.
Thank you.
Paul DiRienzo.
Hello, Board. Thanks for having us tonight. My name is Paul DiRienzo. I live at 762 West Hawthorne in Pioneer Terrace. Past year and a half, I've been the Pioneer Terrace Association president. I've been trying to be kept informed. I'm a 33-year resident of Wheaton. 22 of those have been at Pioneer Terrace, right by Cosley Zoo. I do need to acknowledge my neighbors and friends here. They're passionate, they're informed, they're professional, and they're accurate. I ask any one of you to do a fact check if something might be wrong, but fact check it. With that being said, I don't want to nail the parking lot survey again, but last time I was here, I was told that the zoo lot is full 1/3 of the year. I live there. There is no way that it is full 1/3 of the year. I'm going to move on from that. Other than saying that when information is given that is inaccurate, it makes me, what else could be inaccurate? What else is not shown in the proper light? Also want to say once again, we know we like the zoo. I was there Saturday night. Nice, crisp Saturday evening, looking at trees. Parking lot was not full. It was a great night. We're looking at spending tens of millions of dollars over time for a non-existent issue that was not raised by residents. And this cost will continue. This cost doesn't go away once you have more exhibits, more animals. Doesn't go away. I commend the Cosley Zoo Foundation Board. They're doing a strategic plan, and that's a wish list. I have my own wish list. I don't want to pay for somebody else's wish list. They're just doing their job, but it doesn't mean we have to accept all that. I don't think bigger and better is always better. This is something that was not requested by the citizens. Someone mentioned 96 to 98% have already been satisfied. We like the zoo. Don't need to say that. I think we should be looking in ways to lessen any tax burden, if not the tax burden now, any future tax burdens. When I moved to Wheaton 33 years ago, I had to pay a fee of 1.5% of the sale of my house of the community I was leaving. When I moved into Wheaton, I had to pay 1% stamp, a stamp I can't use. I had to pay 1% just to move into this great town. Willing to do that. And I'm willing to pay my fair share. I just don't want to pay a wish list for a few people on a board. I appreciate what you do. That's your wish list. It's not my wish list. I feel that this should be brought to the people. The cost should be brought to the people. And if the majority says yes, then I pay my fair share. I just do not want to do it and pay for someone else's dream. I have my own. I have my own family, children, grandchildren, and I appreciate you running it the way you run it, but bigger and better is not always the way to go. So thank you, appreciate the time, and thank you to my neighbors.
Brendan Lee.
Hi, my name's Brendan Lee. I live at 752 Ralph Court with my wife Alex and two small children. I'm here today to speak against the zoo, the proposed parking lot expansion project. As you said earlier, today we're talking about a parking lot. We're not talking about the whole master plan. What that means is what we're proposing is an expanded parking lot while the current lot remains in place. So we're talking about a excess parking lot that maybe you get 2 cars there, maybe you get 5, and we're talking about 150 parking spaces costing $4.3 million. I think everyone here would say that's comically excessive if it weren't for the master plan. So really, we're not just talking about a parking lot. If we are only talking about a parking lot, then the answer is pretty clear, no. So now moving on to the master plan, I think we should really seriously look at the analysis that was done and whether or not it's appropriate, and that make sure that the master plan is the right thing to do. I looked at the analysis done by Schultz and Williams, and I found some very serious flaws in their analysis. The first problem, and I'll try to keep it quick, so I'll probably just stick with the first problem, maybe a little bit more. As part of their projections for how attendance could grow, they looked at some comparable zoos. The average attendance of those zoos at the time was roughly 390,000. Cosley was 134. The consultants argue that after all the master plan changes, Cosley could get up to an attendance of 300,000, which would then, support itself. At face value, that looks somewhat reasonable. However, when you look at their list of comparable zoos, included in there are the New York City Central Park Zoo. I appreciate the laugh there. That's kind of funny that they thought that Central Park Zoo is comparable to Cosley. Included there was also the St. Paul, Minnesota Como Park Zoo. If you've ever been there, looked at the website, it's almost funnier. They've got giraffes, they've got gorillas, they've got cougars, you name it. They have, it's a world-class zoo. If you exclude those two zoos, which are obviously not comparable to Cosley, you actually get an average of 131,000, which is just slightly below the Cosley of 134,000 at the time. I believe now the number is somewhere in the 150 range. So with that in mind, you shouldn't expect an increase in attendance from the proposed changes here. They projected an increase of 25,000 just from adding a parking lot. If you build it, they're not going to come. So now let's just pretend Cosley somehow gets up to 300,000. Where are these people coming from? Are they, going to be? Well, right now, the majority of Cosley's visitors are families with young children, generally, 5 and under. with the addition of a bear and some otters, is Cosley suddenly going to start attracting a broad swath of the population and, attracting, high schoolers, people going on date nights? Probably not. And even if they do get the 150,000 people, are they going to be majority of Wheaton people, which, remember, Wheaton funds 2/3 of the zoo's budget. The answer is pretty clearly no. Wheaton already knows about it. Parking's not a problem. If Wheaton taxpayers want to visit Cosley, they already will. So the real goal of the master plan is to bring the ratio of Wheaton to non-Wheaton from 200 to 130 to 200, from 20,000 Wheaton to 130,000 non-Wheaton to, probably somewhere in the 20,000 Wheaton to 280,000 non-Wheaton. It's the whole master plan is really designed to benefit non-Wheaton residents. And, lastly, would you expect this to bring a lot of business to downtown Wheaton? So first, the obvious reason for no is, as I discussed earlier, we shouldn't actually expect an increase in attendance. But, pretending that attendance does somehow go up to 300,000, the traffic on Gary is going to be a nightmare. People are going to be exhausted trekking to and from the parking lot, which I think a few people have already said today. It's a really long way, especially anyone with disabilities. It will be extremely difficult. If someone wanted to go to lunch after the zoo, it's just as close to go to Qdoba or McDonald's in Carroll Stream as it would be to drive down to 302 or Altiro. It put you right off Geneva so that you don't have to worry about driving through the crazy traffic. In conclusion, there's a lot of reasons you shouldn't approve this. I think we really need to press a pause, do a referendum, make sure that if we are looking at a master plan, it's done with appropriate analysis. And, today it's not really just a parking lot. If it were just a parking lot, then the answer is a clear no. Thank you.
Thank you.
Reinhard Metz.
Hi, I'm Reinhard Metz, 1926 Berkshire Place, and my wife and I have been residents of Wheaton for some 38 years and frequent visitors to Cosley Park. I don't have much of a prepared statement because we came primarily to learn and hear what other people had to say, and part of our instigation was that, and addressing somewhat the transparency and how much people know about this and are asked about it ahead of time, we found out about this with the postcard that we got in the mail with a $47 million number on there, which now has been amended to something into the 60. Now, if you don't have the perspective of what that means, if you divide that by the number of taxed entities in the community, that's something between $3,000 and $4,000 per taxed entity per household, which is many times the levy that we're paying per year on average in our into the Park District. That said, we love the Park District, we love Cosley. But this just seems so monstrously out of proportion to all of the other missions that the Park District has. Now, just a couple of other quick comments, and then I'll conclude. Our experience, and this has been beaten to death by everybody else already, is the parking lot. Go by there so many times, go there many times, go there at Christmas for Christmas tree shopping, and we've never seen that parking is an issue. And in general, I'd like to just say that we wholeheartedly agree with most of the issues and concerns that people have raised. And then finally, let me conclude in terms of the environmental concern for the parking lot with a piece out of a song from Joni Mitchell, Paved Parking Lot and Threw Away Paradise.
Thank you.
Elizabeth Corey.
Hi, my name's Elizabeth Corey. I live at 925 Howard Street in Wheaton. I've lived here with my family for 33 years in Wheaton and 20 years at my present house. My family's grown up here. My husband and my children's father died while we were here, and the Park District provided us a great place for solace and healing of our grief, and I want to thank you for that. It is my opinion that green spaces are so much more important for the mental and physical health of not just myself and my family, but for all living beings. And so, for this reason, I'm opposed to the expansion of the parking lot. And I just ask you to reconsider that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Rudy Wolf.
Rudy Wolf, I live at 1010 Wheaton Oaks Drive. We're neighbors of the zoo, as many of the other people have spoken, are neighbors of the zoo. I served on the board of our HOA for 10-plus years, president a couple times. Our relationship has always been good with the zoo. I think we've been good neighbors to them. They've been good neighbors to us. We brought our children to the zoo when we didn't even live in Wheaton. Our grandchildren, we brought them to the zoo. It's a gem. It's a local gem. I am a supporter of the zoo, but I'm against the plan. And quite simply, what you have now, and I know I'm repeating what you've heard, it's a local gem, but it seemingly is being developed into some sort of a regional zoo in a residential area on an exceedingly small piece of property. Not much more than a postage stamp. I think that's a mistake. If you will indulge me, I know this is supposed to be about the parking lot, but I would like to mention one specific thing that I think will adversely impact our community. On the south edge of your property and the north edge of our property on East Wheaton Oaks Drive, the people, when they walk out the back door, now look at the duck pond. Ducks make a little bit of noise, but not a whole lot of noise. But right north of there is something called a multi-use meadow for special events and activities. My wife, a couple of years ago, had gone to a local meeting. There was a representative from the zoo operator there. And when asked about that, it's like, well, we don't have any plans. We don't have the staff to do anything there. Well, you're not going to attract Taylor Swift. I understand that. But heaven knows what else it could be used for. Evenings, wedding events, or whatever. I can believe that there are no plans now, but eventually all of the board members will change. The operators will change, the people managing the zoo on a day-to-day basis will change. And when that meadow is located there, it's going to stay there. I just don't think that that's being very neighbor-friendly. And if you really need that particular setting, which you could argue is parking space, okay? You could use it for that. It really needs to go somewhere else. It should not be right up against a fence line that will impact the quiet enjoyment of our properties. So with that, I'll conclude. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
John Patterson. The next person on the list is Tim Youngren.
Hello, my name is Tim Youngren. I live at 902 West
Tim, could
Hawthorne
you speak
Boulevard.
up?
You can speak up.
You're a little tall for the microphone.
I'll work on it.
Either that or bend over.
Right. My name is Tim Youngren. I live at 902 West Hawthorne Boulevard. The points I want to make have been powerfully made already, so I'll be brief. Cosley Zoo's best attributes are that it is family-friendly and handicap-friendly. Moving the parking lot across a busy street is not family-friendly. It is not handicap-friendly. This change will hurt our zoo. Please don't hurt our zoo. Please don't waste all this money on something that's going to hurt the zoo. Thank you.
John, are you ready?
Good evening again. My name is John Patterson this time. I live at 1849 Cherry Street in Wheaton. I am a Park District resident. While I had a 5-minute presentation for you this evening, I'm putting that aside to tell you about a friend that I met today. We had coffee at my half of the moon with a mutual friend, Mary Landreth, otherwise known as Mrs. Wheaton. My new friend's name is Phyllis Geyer. She spoke a couple minutes ago, and we found out that we have a lot in common. We both have had homes in Wheaton for many years. We both come from an educational background and have dedicated ourselves to young people and their education. We both love Cosley Zoo and have had wonderful experience and continue to do so. We are both wise. Well, at least Phyllis is. I'm not so sure about myself. Phyllis presently serves on the Cosley Foundation board. We spent almost 2 hours talking, yes, talking and listening to each other about our concerns on both sides of this issue. Phyllis actually made a suggestion that appears in those documents regarding Cosley that we've seen tonight. Let's communicate with each other. She suggested that both sides sit down and have a conversation about this issue. Phyllis, Mary, and I were civil as we shared our views. We were respectful and discerning, which is my new word, Phyllis. I have listened to both sides tonight. We are all impassioned about this topic. We still have questions. I had questions. Mary had questions. Phyllis had questions. We would like to dialogue with you. That is all we are asking. So how about we take my new friend's advice and set a time so that both sides can talk together in a civil, respectful, with good eye contact in a genuine way. We can do this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Last speaker is Kay McKean.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kay McKean. I've lived 34 years in Wheaton and 30 years in unincorporated Wheaton. I served on, I think, the Park District's first Citizens Advisory Commission. That was in 1978 when my kids were little. I worked with Jerry Douglas at Cosley Park. I love Cosley Park, like everybody in this room loves Cosley Park. We all know it's a gem. I am really opposed to the parking lot. I'm opposed to expansion. I love Sue Algren, Rob. I like all you guys. We work together closely all the time. I really want that space to be used for native space, for grasses, for trees, for the great horned owls. We need more green space. Wheaton is lovely to have green space, but we shouldn't have a parking lot there. We shouldn't expand Cosley Park, in my opinion. We should really enjoy what we have. It is a gem. My grandkids, my kids, we all love it, like everybody in this room. But I do not think it should be expanded. I do not think there should be a parking lot across Gary Avenue. I also don't see the parking lot full, except for when they're selling Christmas trees. But I think that we need to think about the environmental impact of what that does to when we take away more wetland area right where that creek goes from Northside Park into Lincoln Marsh and across the street, under the street, I should say. We need to, yes, I'm happy to dialogue, and that's a great word. I'd love to sit with folks and talk about the environmental impact would be my biggest concern. We cannot afford to lose more trees. We need to be planting more trees, and more trees. Do you know that our country has had over 50,000 forest fires this year? And a forest fire in America is considered anything over 50 years. So if there's just 50 acres, so if there's 100 trees times 50,000 forest fires of at least 50 acres is a lot of trees we've lost. We need more trees than ever. We need native plants. We need to leave the soils that have been there with their great spores and their bacterias that are native to this area. We need to leave them there. We need to restore it. I don't want a parking lot. I'd like to have more trees. I'd like to have more native plants. And I think that really benefits the wildlife, and it will benefit Cosley Park as well. I thank you guys for all the work that you all do. I've sat on many commissions for many, many years. I think I've volunteered for every kind of activity the Park District has. We clean Northside Park every single time we walk. We clean Lincoln Marsh every time we walk by the Prairie Path. I don't know if there's a thing I haven't done for the Park District yet, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes, but we have to protect the environment, and we need more trees, and we need more native plants, and we need to protect those great horned owls that we have. And do you all know that we've had some eagles at Northside Park this year? We need, yes. So we need to protect that. And somebody talked about who speaks for the wildlife. Well, we all need to be speaking for the wildlife because we need them. So thank you very much for the job that you do. Thanks for everybody coming here today. And I am willing to help in any way I can, but I'm opposed to this project. Thank you.
All right, that's everybody. So the next item of business is the consent agenda.
I'll make that motion, Mr. President. I would move to approve consent agenda items A through E, beginning with A, approval of the disbursements totaling $1,903,591.95 for the period beginning October 18, 2023 and ending November 14, 2023. B, approval of the disbursements totaling $414,800.23 for the period beginning October 18, 2023 and ending November 14, 2023. C, approval of the subcommittee meeting minutes. Of the meeting of September 13, 2023. D, approval of the subcommittee meeting October 4, 2023. And finally, E, approval of the regular meeting minutes of October 25, 2023.
Second.
So we have a motion by me, a second by Fry. Any discussion? Mike, take the roll, please.
Commissioner Barrett?
Yes.
Commissioner Fry?
Yes.
Commissioner Me?
Yes.
Commissioner Pacharich?
Yes.
Commissioner Vyers? Yes. President Kelly?
Yes. We'll move to new business. There is no unfinished business. New business item 1 is an agenda item requested by Steve and Angela Stevenson of 1300 Champion Forest Court. And its title is Parking Data Collection and Parking Expansion for Cosley Zoo.
Thank you. Good evening, Wheaton Park District Board members. Thank you so much for your time today. My name is Steve Stevenson. My wife Angela and I have been residents of Wheaton since 1999. Tonight, I want to introduce into new business the opportunity to save costs for Wheaton Park District for the $4.3 million estimate for the proposed Cosley Zoo parking expansion on East Gary Avenue, and save the taxpayers' money from the estimated $49 million for the cost quoted for the Cosley Zoo master expansion plan. Actually, if we could request you share any update to the dollar amount of the expected parking lot expenditure during either this segment or during the parking lot expansion segment, so we're using actual numbers from that perspective. Angela and I greatly appreciate Cosley Zoo as a unique, quaint, not crowded, small zoo that's family friendly. We believe this is a wonderful, accessible facility on the land that was donated by Paula Jones to be a natural park for all to enjoy, do not want it to be crowded entertainment venue based on the direction of the master plan. The first step in this grand master plan is to build a new and separate parking lot. So let's get into the data behind making such a decision. So slide 2, please. According to the legal counsel for the Wheaton Park District, based on the FOIA request, which is put forth concerning the data of the number of cars parked in Cosley parking lot, logged by hour by day, the response was that the Park District has no records to this request. The data of how many cars and timestamp of what time of the day they came in and exited are key pieces of information needed for a multi-million-dollar decision about creating a new parking lot, which is absolutely needed. The Freedom of Information Act request was also made for the Cosley Zoo visitor log. They have a number of visitors, adults, seniors, children by day of the visit, but they do not indicate how many cars are in the parking lot. They are visitor logs, so they lack key information to make informed decisions about parking. Slide number 3, please. The visitor logs from Cosley Zoo were presented as justification for the need for more parking at the October Wheaton Park District meeting. The visitor log had an F on the 137 days a year indicating the zoo parking lot was full. Ms. Walgren explained how many full days are determined. She said that employees would take note of the days the lot was full by looking at the parking lot or seeing cars circling the parking lot in the front section of the parking lot. This is not a statistical measurement. We have a picture of what an employee can see from the parking lot of the zoo entrance. In the fall, obviously, there's no tree foliage. At the very best angle, a person can't fully see the full circular section of the parking lot, let alone see the second part of the parking lot near the Gary Avenue Prairie. Nor can you see the overflow lot. And then just anecdotally, in early November, while walking the dog during the weekend, I saw the front part of the parking lot full, but the extension going out to Prairie had 10 cars. So the lot definitely had available spaces, but 2 cars were circling the front to get closer spots in case somebody left. And obviously, we need factual data, not anecdotal data coming forward. So what I propose that the Park District collect parking information using a standard photometer measurement tube across the Cosley Zoo entrance and exit, or other monitoring and data gathering device which is a reasonable cost. Some instruments that can do the job outdoors for around $3,000. Once that information is in hand, for each season of the year, data-driven decisions can be made based on the number of cars, the times of high use during each day, and times of high use on specific days of the year. The zoo could also purchase software to show visitors online the status of the parking lot and show typical daily parking trends so the visitors can plan their trips accordingly. I'm somewhat surprised that the parking capacity data was not collected by the Wheaton Park District as its due diligence, but it's not too late to gather the data now. Slide 4, please. If more parking is needed, what is the safest and most economical choice? Let's look at the overhead visual of the area. First, the orange area is the proposed new parking area. The red line near the orange proposed new parking area indicates the walking path going south along Gary Avenue to the new traffic light and cross Prairie Avenue, crosswalk at Prairie Avenue, then back along Gary Avenue to get to the zoo entrance. The large blue triangle indicates the current parking lot. Visitors walk directly to the entrance. The handicap parking is indicated by the 2 blue boxes, the green and the red lines there. Handicapped visitors will have to walk a long distance with the proposed orange parking lot, estimated to be 150 yards. The current handicap parking lot is just steps away from the zoo entrance. An alternative option is securing parking from Wheaton Oaks Complex for the Wheaton Oaks Court Street and building parking lot. The green line is a path the visitors would take if the current blue lot is full. Visitors could park on the Wheaton Oaks Street and at the building's parking lot at the same side of Gary Avenue, directly south of Cosley Zoo. The Wheaton Oaks Complex owns the street adjacent to the lake and 15 parking spots on the street. Additional parking spaces are available in Wheaton Oaks Complex parking lot. This solution has proximity, immediate use, no Gary Avenue congestion at an economical price, no children or handicapped people walking across Gary to go to the zoo. Slide 5, please. Here's a close-up picture of the Wheaton Oaks office complex parking. A cost estimate around $22,000 a year for 30 spaces using market data provided by the city of Wheaton for $2 per space times 365 days, plus the cost of a sidewalk along Wheaton Oaks Court at $9 a square foot for about 200 square feet for sidewalk is around $6,000. So this 10-year cost would be around $220,000. This would give Cosley the 157 parking spaces, or if they want to expand to 167 spaces, they could lease 40 spots. All these parking spaces exist today with a shorter walk to Cosley Zoo entrance than the proposed parking lot on the other side of the road of Cosley Zoo. Slide 6, please. So the proposal that we're suggesting is keep the current parking lot, add parking at a cost-effective rate, begin tracking parking data now, use software to help manage the parking lot, lease extra parking spaces based on need, and this option saves money, it reflects the desire of the residents, and provides a safer options for the visitors in half, versus a multi-million-dollar parking lot where there's no data to justify the capital expense. The residents have clearly said they're not interested in this, and there's also a safety issue as far as people crossing Gary Avenue. So I hope that the board will take the time needed to consider the desires of the residents, the data, the financial aspects of the management of Cosley Zoo before you vote for any changes. Any questions?
Do you have any questions?
No.
Thank you very much. We have a second agenda item requested by Chris Gould called Environmental Planning Impact Assessment, IDNR, and the National Environmental Protection Act Study, NEPA.
Thanks. I'll make a brief presentation here. A lot of good points were made and already, and so I'll just blaze through this. You want me to do that? Or? The point that Mary, the gal that mentioned environmental impact for the first time out of everybody's good info, indicates to me that somebody's watching over me, because somebody mentioned environmental impact, and that's really what I wanted to discuss. Is the plan complete, and the environmental impact associated with the parking lot? You guys talked about just the parking lot being the critical vote decision. Here's a picture on the edge of the parking area, the meadow, a beautiful meadow like that, needs an environmental impact study. I know you guys have professionals on staff, but we haven't seen anything related to environmental impact studies on any of the publicly available data. So I just did some layman's research related to this, and environmental impact assessments are required by multiple layers of government, whether it's federal requirements that say if impact crosses state lines or if federal funding is involved, this necessitates compliance with the National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA, per EPA guidelines, and the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System. If you step back to state of Illinois, it says that projects in Illinois are subject to state environmental regulations and assessments requiring compliance with the Illinois Environmental Protection Act. The Illinois EPA sets standards for lot development and compliance with their Illinois Department of Natural Resources EcoCat program, which is Ecological Assessment Tool. This has not been addressed in anything that we've seen. And then, of course, locally, DuPage County has wetland preservation, stormwater management, and air quality rules for best management practices, impact on local wildlife habitat, stream and river site development, and these necessitate an environmental impact assessment study, or SWP, which is stormwater pollution protection, which I have heard because of the recessed retention area come up, so that's been addressed. But being as the lot is steps away from a regulatory wetland and just seconds upstream from the governmental critical wetland designation, we really need the assessment from professionals. The next slide is just a discussion on waters of the United States. That's a regulatory term of the Clean Water Act, a federal law that governs water pollution. The Environmental Protection Agency and U.S. Army Corps of Engineers jointly administer this. There's been a lot of recent changes, including tighter rules and more legal challenges to projects affecting bodies of water, making development near watersheds and wetlands very difficult. A 2022 Supreme Court decision, Sackett versus the EPA, restored fundamental protections for the nation to achieve the lawmakers' direction, which was to make, in the Clean Water Act, ensuring improved clean water for drinking, swimming, and fishing. A little research showed that the 2015 approved jurisdictional report indicated that the United States Army Corps of Engineers confirmed that the Winfield Creek is a navigable water of the United States, an important designation so close to a large parking lot. So here's just a picture from the edge of the meadow. You can see a football throw away is Winfield Creek. According to NEPA, project decision makers must engage with the relevant regulatory bodies and conservation NGOs from early stage planning to ensure that required documentation is evaluated and an informed decision is made. Decision makers include staff and board commissioners. Winfield Creek, leads to the Gulf of Mexico very rapidly, and hence becomes a project with NEPA impact. Here's a picture of the wooded meadow from Gary Avenue. Hopefully everybody has had a chance to get out of their car, walk, visualize the changes. I know Mike did. He was kind enough pre-COVID to come to our backyard. We live in Wheaton Oaks, and I, with some neighbors, had become aware of the master plan from the signage, and he was kind enough to come and discuss his vision, and we were kind enough to, talk to him about how much we love the little zoo. But my influencing skills were not good enough, evidently, because here we are pursuing Mike's 300,000 visitor goal. And I just want to recognize that that would equate to 100,000 cars annually. And really, that amount in our little neighborhood justifies a detailed environmental assessment. There's plenty of professionals, I'm sure there are, on staff. There's outsiders, whether it's the Hay and Associates. I know some folks at the Wetlands Initiative downtown. They're focused on watershed protection, the interconnectivity of development and the watershed. I really think that should be part of the assessment that the board receives, and certainly the tax-paying public as well. So I'll leave it at that. Basically, this is just a picture of, Naperville downstream. We're good neighbors. We want to make sure that we're doing the right thing here so that downstream doesn't have any negative impact. So in summary, an environmental impact analysis should be provided if you're going to pave over open lands in a watershed near wetlands and jurisdictional waters. A project must make sense and be evaluated transparently by professionals. Before a vote and spending more taxpayer money, we think that you should see an analysis like that, and the taxpayer should as well. We love the zoo. We appreciate your volunteer efforts at improving the community, and I appreciate the opportunity to pitch.
Hey, Chris? Yeah, so, I'd like to address that a little bit, and I'm going to ask Sean and Rob to weigh in. Right now, those type of studies are generally done during the permit process. And right now, we don't even have permission to build a parking lot on that property. So the design work that has been done to date is pretty much concept work to put together something that we would have to go to the city and ask for zoning relief. So I can assure you that those types of studies are generally part of the permit process. And if the board decides to go ahead with this project and receives permission from the zoning board to do such, those documents will be requested by the county. There's state requirements we have to file, but exactly what is needed to build this is dictated during the permit process. Am I correct? Yeah, I'm asking our professional.
Yeah, so typically the detailed review will require, all the jurisdictional agencies, the city of Wheaton. We have to go through the entitlement process. We have to go through building permits. If there were any wetland impacts, that would involve DuPage County. In general, we need to follow the DuPage County Stormwater Ordinance and the City of Wheaton Ordinance, which addresses all the environmental measures that were mentioned, including stormwater, erosion control, and NPDES, which he mentioned, the Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, wetlands, floodplain impacts. We can't make anything where we need to follow the ordinance, and as we get through design, we'll go through that process.
So, Chris, in answer to your question, all that will be done, but only if we decide to move ahead with this and actually apply for a permit. All right?
And just to clarify, too, as we showed before, we could bring it up, too, the wetlands are south of that existing man-made detention basin, and currently, the proposed improvements aren't showing any impact to the wetland. Winfield Creek is jurisdictional, so if we did get into the wetland, the Corps would take jurisdiction. We're not touching the boundary of the wetland, so the Corps will not take jurisdiction of the wetlands. Also, with the wetland buffer, which we showed before, DuPage County, if we got into the buffer, would take jurisdiction, require mitigation, but current plans are showing no impact to the buffer as well.
All right, thanks, Sean. Hope that answers your question. Chris?
It does.
All right, thank you.
I would encourage a no vote in the meantime.
All right, let's move on to the next item. I believe we have an updated presentation by White Associates.
Probably don't need it.
Thanks for having me tonight. The board wanted White to give a update on the site plan. So just real quick, there's the three versions of the site plan are shown on the screen. So the original site plan on the left there is the parking lot that had shown 258 parking spaces to begin. Last month at the board meeting, there were revisions to that site plan in the center there, and that showed a 40% decrease in parking to 150 spaces. That revision to the site plan allowed for increased setbacks from the residential properties to the east and the south. And we also left a wide open green space along Gary. We were trying to get, the plan for that was for some potential above ground detention to help with budget purposes. But I'd like tonight to go over the current site plan all the way on the right side of the screen there. So this is the updated site plan. We've shifted the parking lot closer to Gary Avenue. to get increased setbacks from the residential neighbors. The parking is still 150 parking spaces. The setback along the north side of the parking lot has been revised from 67.4 feet to 69.2. The east setback has been increased from 67.7 to 115 feet. The south setback has been increased from 49.9 to 69.6 feet.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Sure.
You're talking about the setback, just so everybody knows, that's the green shaded area, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
So just the setback from the north where all the existing trees are located, that's 69.2 feet now. On the east side, it's been increased to 115 feet. The south side right here to 69.6. And then the setback along the main drive remains at 30.5 feet. And the setback along Gary has been decreased to 25 feet in order to get the increased setbacks from the residential neighbors. Just a quick overview of the site plan remains pretty much the same. Main ingress egress will be at the new signalized intersection at Prairie and Gary that the city is improving. The north entrance over here will be fully gated and only used for maintenance and deliveries. And pedestrians will make their way through the lot to some collector sidewalks and then cross at the signalized intersection at Gary and Prairie, as we discussed. The city is putting in a new 8-foot sidewalk on the west side of Gary. They're also putting in an 8-foot multi-use bike lane on the east side of Gary as well. Should mention as well that the main entrance will also have gates to control cars coming in and out of the parking lot at off hours or when there are no events, can control the amount of cars that enter the lot.
And Sean, once again, the light that's going to be there, that the city's putting that light in, correct? That's not part of...
Correct. That is part of the city improvements at Gary and Prairie, which allows now for they'll have the crosswalks, they'll have the push buttons with the lights and all that. Looks like something happened with this image a little bit, but I showed this last time. So the general drainage for the site plan, existing drainage to the residential properties is 2.45 acres. With the proposed improvements, we're going to reduce the amount of drainage from the actual Park District site to 0.44 acres along the east side. In addition, I did some more calculations on the north. There's a 0.44 acres from the north residential properties that will continue to come through the Park District site that we will collect during design and will be diverted. So almost offsets. These are almost exactly the same areas, but we'll be taking this into our detention system. I'll show you that in a second. Overall, there's an 84.7% reduction of runoff that currently drains to the residential properties to the east and the south. And overall, 92% of the water on the Park District's property will be collected. That drainage will be collected via swales and storm sewers and will go to our proposed underground detention vault below the parking lot. And that will be slowly released and restricted to the existing basin to the south and then Winfield Creek. As I mentioned before, we need to follow the DuPage County Stormwater Ordinance and the City of Wheaton Ordinance. The runoff rate will be reduced from what it is today. We can't increase it. It must follow those requirements. And I'll be here for questions for the engineering piece. I'd like to hand it over to one of my colleagues, Daniel Watson, who's the landscape architect, and he'll go over some of the updates on the landscape plan.
So for the landscape plan, we are maintaining our 15-foot buffer along the east property line and the south through here. That buffer will be maintained using evergreen trees, shade trees, ornamental trees, and shrubbery. We have also gone through and added a 15-foot tall arborvitae hedge that would go along the entire length of those property lines to add for additional buffer in there. To the south around the detention area, we also have included that 15-foot hedge as well as putting in some new trees in that area that would tolerate the water that would come up naturally through that area. With this revision to the parking lot, we also wanted to get more green space into the parking lot itself. So we installed landscape islands that go the entire length of the parking lot between the parking stalls, both up here on the northern part and as well down on the southern part of that as well. We've been maintaining the right-of-way trees along Gary Avenue throughout the entire design. Go to the section, sorry, buttons. Then we have the section that would show what that would look like if it was built, how we have it drawn. We did move the 8-foot wood fence that would be screening to off the parking lot edge in this concept. With that, there would be the line of trees that would go right up against that, as well as leaving our buffer at the edge of the property line. We could move this buffer over to in front of the fence and then switch where those trees go onto the property line as well. In this design, we are maintaining those buffers as required by the city ordinance.
Thank you. All right, Rob, is there anything else for Wright? Does anybody have any questions? Rob, can you put up the slide with the three, or you can leave that one up, that one was fine. All right, so the next item of business is review and consideration of resolution 2023-11, authorizing the filing of an application with the City of Wheaton for zoning relief related to Cosley Zoo parking lot. Before we can have discussion, I would need a motion.
I'll move to approve Resolution 2023-11, authorizing the filing of an application with the City of Wheaton for zoning relief related to Cosley Zoo parking lot.
Second.
All right, so we had a motion by Vyers and a second by me. And now we can have board discussion. And I'd like to go first. Since the issuance of the white paper mailing last week, the emailed comments we received have been mostly about the Cosley Master Plan and its tax implications. And tonight we've heard both objections to and support for both the master plan and the parking lot project. Even though the only issue before the board tonight is should the Park District seek zoning relief to build a parking lot on former residential property or not. And I would like to offer my own personal opinion on both subjects prior to the vote. For me, the master plan commissioned by the Cosley Foundation and presented to the Park Board in 2015 offers a 20 to 30-year vision of what could be possible at Cosley and was always dependent on raising private funds and was never an all-or-nothing vision. Since most non-maintenance projects at Cosley have been funded primarily by private donations, I have and will continue to advocate using that model for any Cosley improvement project presented to this board or any future board. What has become clear the past few weeks is that while everybody loves the Cosley Zoo, there are a wide range of opinions as to what the future for Cosley should be, and that the current master plan's vision may not be shared by all, which is okay. It will be the responsibility of future boards to work with the Wheaton residents over the next few decades to determine Cosley's future. It is because of these differing opinions that I believe all future Cosley improvement projects will be approached as individual projects, constructed over time as private funds become available, and as these projects are researched, proposed, shared with the public, and vetted and approved by future boards. The last major non-parking improvement project at Cosley was the Bobcat exhibit, built in 2012 at a cost of $700,000. This project followed that model, and its costs were paid by a combination of private funds raised by the Cosley Foundation and a matching grant. And since I was on the board at that time, I do not recall any objection to that project. Since then, it has taken years to raise the private funds necessary to make construction of an additional parking lot even possible. Over the past few months, opposition to the east parking lot has escalated from a not in my backyard issue to a perceived environmental wetlands issue, and now to a master plan and related tax issue. But for me, it's not. For me, tonight's resolution is only about solving the current parking problem at Cosley Zoo using the residential lots the Park District acquired over the past 10 years for that sole purpose. It is not a vote to destroy non-existing wetlands or a vote to proceed with the Cosley Zoo master plan or any other project at Cosley Zoo for that matter. It's a vote to start addressing the real parking problem with a solution that the Park District has been planning, communicating, and working on for years. If no other Cosley projects are ever completed, the parking problem still needs to be addressed. Cosley currently has 80 dedicated spaces and not 127 has been suggested. The Park District also owns the South Office building adjacent to the zoo and opens this lot for added zoo parking on weekends when the office building is closed. The zoo's parking records over the past 6 to 7 years indicated that the lot reaches full capacity around 180 days, and approximately 60 of those days occur on Saturday and Sunday when the extra office building spaces are available. Even though the proposed 150-space east lot is designed to account for all Cosley's future parking needs, I support seeking zoning approval for the entire lot now and then building it in 2 equal-sized phases. Phase 1, the rectangular area down at the bottom closest to Gary Avenue, would satisfy the immediate need, and second phase, the bump out to the east, would satisfy the need for additional parking only if the existing wet lot is repurposed. This approach could prove more costly if both phases are eventually built, but avoids the possibility of building more spaces than are actually needed if the west lot is never closed or repurposed. I also support keeping the existing west lot as it allows visitors to choose the east lot when the west lot is full, but will never force everyone visiting the zoo to use the east lot. Crossing Gary, even at a light, is a concern raised by multiple residents and is also a concern of mine. I will also advocate that the start of any actual on-site construction work be contingent upon construction of the city's proposed road project, which adds the stoplight, as I don't believe the lot works without the light. I also, with this, I plan to vote yes for the resolution to apply to the city for zoning relief required to construct a parking lot on our east property, as we find out now if the property can be the property the district purposed specifically to build additional parking can actually be used for that foreseeable future. And my opinion is based on the parking information received from the Cosley Foundation and from staff. And before I...
You know what? Excuse me. Everybody, we gave you all the opportunity to speak to us, and we did not interrupt you. So please, please kindly give the president of the board the same respect that we've given you.
No data for us.
And
Can you show us that data?
let me finish. And before I vote yes, I will need to be convinced that that data is accurate.
Thank you.
Would have been nice if you just let me finish.
I'm also a yes. I feel like I voted yes on the parking lot program about 6 years ago in 2017 when we bought the Williams property. That's a big part of that parcel. We bought it with the intention of building a parking lot to solve the Cosley Zoo parking issue. There's not much use for that green space for the Park District as a whole, except as a parking lot, in my opinion. And there's a couple reasons for that. Number one, the Lanzarote property that was bought over there was bought by the Cosley Foundation with Cosley Zoo donor money and donated to the Park District for use of the zoo. It wasn't bought for use as a park or any other type of facility. It would be improper use of Cosley Donor Foundation money to use that property for any other use besides benefiting the zoo. Second, it's an expensive proposition to create green space where none heretofore existed. These were residential lots with houses on them, and they're vacant now because we bought the lots and we tore the houses down. If we were going to go through a program throughout the city, throughout the Park District, and we were going to create brand new green space by buying residential lots and tearing down houses, I would want to pick an underserved portion of the Park District. I would want to pick a place where it's a half-mile or more walk to a park. And we have plenty of places, plenty of neighborhoods like that in the city. This particular lot is adjacent to Northside Park, which is 80 acres, and Lincoln Marsh, which is another 150 acres. That's 230 acres of open green space already in this neighborhood. There are plenty of neighborhoods that are underserved with their green space. And if we're going to spend money to create green space, that's where I'd want to do it. And the last issue I have on creating a park in this particular piece of property is the fact that we create green space for people to be able to use in order for them to be able to recreate, to have a picnic, to toss a ball around, to use it. And we want people from everywhere in the district to be able to access it. We can't park anyone at this space. There's no access to this place. The only place they could park would be at Cosley Zoo, which already has a parking problem. So how can I fair and equitably tell people that we're buying this park, we're creating a park already adjacent to 230 acres. How could I tell somebody on the south side of Wheaton, 230 acres, we're buying a park here, and you can't get to it? There's no way for you to get to it. So I'm a yes on this. I think it's best use for us as a parking lot, and it benefits the district as a whole.
President Kelly, I'd like to read a short statement into the record, and some of which will reiterate comments made by President Kelly and Commissioner Vires. What started as a fairly simplistic need to expand our parking availability for a very often need for more Cosley Zoo parking, and a long existing plan to utilize Park District-owned and available property on east side of Gary Avenue, resulted in obvious opposition from a few neighboring residents who were concerned about a subsequent possible. Can I finish? Can you show me the same respect that we've shown you?
Please. We need to let everybody speak.
Who are concerned about a
Without
subsequent possible exacerbation of the occasional flooding in the area of their homes because of lot construction, and then a refusal by those residents to believe the park districts and engineers' multiple presentations that any resulting flooding in the area after the lot construction would at the very least not increase on the resident properties and will likely be mitigated. That opposition has since devolved into inaccurate and to some extent disingenuous contentions by some of those residents, who have subsequently created a firestorm of misinformation about many issues beyond the scope and intention of the parking lot plan. What I believe to be an initial resident not in my backyard issue of a parking lot has devolved into some subsequent false contentions that the Park District, through the parking lot plan, is significantly impacting wetlands and wildlife, the watershed, and thereby eliciting significant emotional support based on those contentions. Among other subsequent attacks is the attack on the Cosley Zoo Master Plan, which is simply intended as a vision for the future possible plan or plans for creation of any new exhibits. A master plan that, although generally supported by the Park Board and previous boards, was not created by this Park Board and which does not create any mandates for action by this Park Board or any future ones. Any plan or plans for any type of expansion would require board support on a case-by-case basis and necessitate fundraising and not an increase in property taxes. Any such plan approvals, if any in the future, would be considered in a public setting, and there are no immediate plans for any new exhibits or expansions. The misinformation about increases in property taxes to support any Cosley Zoo expansion is absolutely false and inaccurately initiated. Unfortunately, some of the same misinformation in a number of areas has been presented by a number of our audience speakers tonight. We obviously can't make people believe what they don't wish to believe. As stated, however, by President Kelly, the only issue before the board and community is one of a need for this board to try to alleviate a situation of not enough zoo parking. I also support the statements by President Kelly and Commissioner Vires in the consideration of a possible two-phase parking lot construction only if warranted. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I just want to say that I support what both Johns and Terry just said, and I'm voting yes.
No other comment? Linda?
I just want to make a comment regarding the master plan and people not wanting to see Cosley Zoo change. I was just there the other day getting my Christmas tree. I was there with my 18-year-old son. I've taken him there since he was an infant. We walked around, we enjoyed it. And as I walked around and I thought about the zoo, I thought about how the zoo's been there for 50 years. And when the zoo first started, it didn't look like it does today. So it was a small zoo, and I believe Sue Walgren was the second employee. And under her tutelage and subsequent employees, the zoo has grown. That's what makes it what it is today. But the point is that it didn't start the way we see it today. It was much smaller. I don't know if people complained at that time as they saw the zoo evolve over the last 50 years. But to remain relevant and to remain, I'm going to use the word conservation, even though now we use that word conservation and people get upset by it. We talk about conservation about the animals, and with the expansion of our knowledge base and what we need to do to conserve animals, we need to continue to develop the zoo, and part of that could be the expansion of the zoo. So keep in mind, what you see today at Cosley Zoo was not how it started. It's not what it was even like 20 years ago. So there is a transformation that we need to see, and I know that's not what we're talking about today and voting on today, but for everyone who's concerned about what the expansion is going to do, stop and think, well, if it hadn't expanded over the course of these past 50 years, what kind of zoo would we even have today?
Okay. We did not read the entire resolution in the record, and it was part of the board packet, right?
Correct.
The only comment on the resolution I do want to make is, there was a lawsuit brought against the Park District and City with respect to applying for zoning relief through the intergovernmental agreement. And this resolution specifically states, the executive director and attorneys for the Park District are directed to not file the process zoning application under procedures set forth in the intergovernment agreement between the Park District and the City of Wheaton, but are instead directed to file and process the zoning application utilizing the zoning procedures and set forth in the City of Wheaton's ordinance. So we are not going to use the special use or the IGA to try to get a special use permit. We are planning, if the board votes yes, we will go through the full zoning process as has been suggested by the attorneys in the lawsuit. So we had the motion by Byers, the second by me. Mike, take the roll, please.
Commissioner Barrett?
Yes.
Commissioner Fry?
Yes.
Commissioner Me?
Yes.
Commissioner Pacharich?
Yes.
Commissioner Vyers?
Yes.
President Kelly?
Yes. All right. Moving on to new business item number 4, general obligation limited tax bond sale.
With us today, we have Anthony Maselli from our financial advisors at Spear Financial. He would like to provide a brief presentation related to the competitive bidding process for our annual general
Can we let
obligation.
these people clear here? So,
Sure.
thank you, Anthony, for your patience, buddy.
Yeah. No worries at all.
I hope you didn't come at 5.
No.
Smart man. Anthony, give it a couple more, would you? Thank you, buddy.
Go ahead, Anthony.
Yeah, go ahead, Anthony. Mhm.
Sounds good. All right. Good evening, everybody. Nice to see you all. So we took bids today on the district's annual issue of general obligation limited tax park bonds.
This would be the Series 2023 bonds. We, through a competitive bid process, received 5 bids, with the low bid coming from Republic Bank of Chicago out of Oak Brook at a rate of 4.29%. So obviously up a little bit from last year, but following the trends in the market with short-term interest rates. The rates were relatively tight, with the best bid coming at 4.29, and then the high bid coming in at 4.97. After the sale, we revised the par of the bonds to fill up to the debt service extension base. So the new par will be $2,046,178. So that'll be the final amount. We'll close this issue on December 12th. With the proceeds of the bonds, approximately $480,000 is going to be used for the payment of the 2019A alternate revenue source bonds. That payment's coming due December 15th, so we'll close just ahead of that payment. And then just about $1,547,000 will be new money for annual capital needs. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Anthony.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good by me, thanks.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion for the general obligation limited tax park bond series.
Oh, wait. I'm sorry. There's been a change today. I need John. I need John to make that motion.
Yeah,
The numbers came in today,
Okay.
so they
Not a
changed
problem.
slightly, so
Sorry.
John has the right numbers.
Sorry about it. Back off, Fry. I move to approve general obligation limited tax bond series 2023. Recommendation for the issue of approximately $2,046,178 general obligation limited tax bond series 2023, and to approve the bid from the Public Bank of Chicago, Oak Brook, Illinois, at a net interest rate of 4.29%.
Can I second it?
Yes, you may. So we have a motion by Vyers and a second by Fry. Any questions?
Nope.
Mike, take the roll, please.
Commissioner Fry.
Yes.
Commissioner Mee.
Yes.
Commissioner Pacharich.
Yes.
Commissioner Vyers.
Yes.
Commissioner Barrett.
Yes.
President Kelly.
Yes. Item number 5 would be ordinance 23-08. Pardon me?
No, you need the ordinance.
No, now we got to do the ordinance. We did the accepting the bids. So now we need a motion on ordinance 2023-08.
I will move to approve ordinance 2023-08, an ordinance providing for the issue of approximately $2,046,178 general obligation limited tax bonds, series 2023, for the payment of land condemned of purchased for parks, for the building, maintaining, improving, and protecting of the same and the existing land and facilities of the district, and for the payment of certain outstanding bonds of the district, providing for the levy of taxes to pay said bonds, and authorizing the sale of said bonds to the purchaser thereof.
Second.
So we have a motion by Vyers and a second by Pacharich. Any questions or comments?
None. By me.
Mike, take the roll, please.
Commissioner Mee.
Yes.
Commissioner Pacharich.
Yes.
Commissioner Vyers.
Yes.
Commissioner Barrett.
Yes.
Commissioner Fry.
Yes.
President Kelly.
Yes. New business item number 6, I move to table.
Second. Based,
Yeah, go ahead.
based on the request by the resident that we
Right.
table it till the December meeting.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Mike, you'll move that to next month?
Yes, sir.
Okay. New business item 7, resolution 2023-08.
I move to approve Resolution 2023-08, authorizing and ratifying the first and second amendments to the purchase and sale agreement with Aldersgate United Methodist Church.
Second.
So we have a motion by Pacharich, a second by me. Any discussion? Mike, those were basically time extension resolutions?
That's correct.
Right, to get the studies completed?
Correct.
All right. Mike, take the roll, please.
Commissioner Pacharich.
Yes.
Commissioner Vyers.
Yes.
Commissioner Barrett.
Yes.
Commissioner Fry.
Yes.
Commissioner Mee.
Yes.
President Kelly.
Yes. New business item 8, employee insurance benefits renewal for 2023.
I would move to approve those insurance benefits for 2023 under the Sub A through D, Blue Cross Blue Shield Employee HMO and PPO Health Insurance Program. B, Blue Cross Blue Shield Dental PPO Plan. C, Dearborn National Vision Plan, Group Term Life, AD&D, and Voluntary Life. And finally, D, CompPsych Employee Assistance Program at a cost of approximately $2,017,766 before employee contributions.
Second.
So a motion by me and a second by Fry. Any discussion? Mike, take the roll.
Commissioner Vyers?
Yes.
Commissioner Barrett?
Yes.
Commissioner Fry?
Yes.
Commissioner Me?
Yes.
Commissioner Pacharich?
Yes.
President Kelly?
Yes. New business item 9, establishing health insurance and employee contribution rates for 2024.
I'll make a motion to approve employee contribution rates of 5% of premium costs for HMO coverage and 15% of premium costs for PPO coverage for 2024.
Second.
So a motion by Fry, second by Barrett. Anybody have any questions or comments? Mike, take the roll, please.
Commissioner Barrett?
Yes.
Commissioner Fry?
Yes.
Commissioner Me?
Yes.
Commissioner Pacharich?
Yes.
Commissioner Vyers?
Yes.
President Kelly?
Yes. New business item number 10, Arrowhead Golf Course, the new golf cart GPS unit lease.
I'll move to approve a lease of 112 Yamatrack GPS systems at a cost of $48,160 per year for 4 years, plus installation costs of $11,200.
Second.
So we have a motion by Vyers and a second by Fry. And was this the first year our lease was up, or did we extend once and now we're
This would
moving?
be the first year the lease is up.
Okay. All right, Mike, take the roll, please.
Commissioner Fry?
Yes.
Commissioner Me?
Yes.
Commissioner Pacharich?
Yes.
Commissioner Vyers?
Yes.
President Kelly?
Yes. New business item 11, Arrowhead Golf Course Chemicals 2024.
Motion to approve the bids for the vendors, products, and prices per staff recommendations. It's on the back page of the agenda. I don't know how many are listed.
Second.
So we had a motion by Fry, a second by me. Any questions or comments? I think it's roll call, right? It's over.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, take the roll, please.
Commissioner Me?
Yes.
Commissioner Pacharich?
Yes.
Commissioner Vyers?
Yes.
Commissioner Barrett?
Yes.
Commissioner Fry?
Yes.
President Kelly?
Yes. New business item 12, Cosley Zoo Fall Carnival Rides.
I'm going to make that motion with a slight edit to the amount that's identified in the agenda. So move to approve the payments to JBR Fundways in the amount of $35,284.43 for the Cosley Zoo Fall Carnival Rides.
Second.
Motion by me, second by Fry. Any comments, questions?
Why the change in the amount?
There was a subsequent to the subcommittee meeting, the final few days of the actual carnival rides came in. The original figure was an estimate, and unfortunately, I failed to transfer the updated number to the agenda from the report. So that's an error on my part.
It's okay.
Thank you.
Mike, can that be a voice vote, right? At 35?
No, I can roll call.
All right, Mike, take the roll.
With apologies, Commissioner Barrett?
Yes.
Commissioner Fry?
Yes.
Commissioner Me?
Yes.
Commissioner Pacharich?
Yes.
Commissioner Vyers? Yes. President Kelly?
Yes. New business item 13, a change order to the Cosley Zoo Visitor Center deck replacement project.
I'll make a motion to approve change order number 1 for an additional $625 and change order number 2 for an additional $2,150 from Walfill.
Second.
So motion by Fry, second by Barrett. Any questions or comments?
Nope.
No. All right. That one we can do by voice vote.
Yep.
All in favor?
Yes, you can.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. Item 14, Central Athletic Center ice rink sale of alcohol for a special event.
I move to approve the sale of beer and wine between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. January 27th, 2024 at the Central Athletic Center ice rinks during a special event rental.
Second.
So a motion by Vyers, second by Pacharich. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, it's been successful in the past. We
Yeah, Mike, how
assume
many
it will
years
be in the future.
have they been
I
doing this?
believe this is 6 years, Dan, is that correct?
That's about the first year of the rink, right?
I think they did it
Yeah.
almost
Yeah.
when we opened the ice rink.
Right,
wasn't it?
yeah.
And it's like a private
It's a
Fundraising?
fundraiser for pediatric brain cancer,
That's what I
hosted
thought.
by the R33 Foundation.
Thank you. We can do that by voice vote. All in favor? Anybody opposed? No. All right. Number 15, the community center parking lot repaving project. There's a change order number 2.
Move to approve change order number 2 in the amount of $4,617 with Abbey Paving for what was a great job of in the community center parking lot.
Second. So motion by me, second by Barrett. Anybody have any questions or comments?
They really moved through it quickly, and they did a fine job.
We barely got that paving in at the last, it was close. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Number 16, Community Center Phase 2 Interiors, change order number 1.
I move to approve change order number 1 in the amount of $12,003.56 with Stuckey Construction.
Second.
So a motion by Vyers and a second by Fry. Anybody have any questions or comments on that? Nope. Let's do a voice vote on that one, too. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Number 17, the Briar Patch Renovation Park Project, change order number 2.
I move to approve change order number 2 in the amount of $640.40 with Engineering Resource Associates.
Second. Byers got it.
So a motion by Pacharek, second by Vyers. Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Number 18, Arrowhead Cart Path Paving Project, change order number 1.
I'll make a motion to approve change order number 1 in the amount of $2,000 with Obsidian Asphalt Paving.
Second.
So a motion by Fry, second by Barrett. Anybody have any comments?
Is that work already done, I
Yeah.
presume?
Yeah, they actually called me when they were,
Okay.
when we got there. And
That's
it was
what I
done the
thought.
same day we did the paving, so
Cool.
I had authorized that. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Next item, ordinance number 23-06,
Move to
approving a
approve.
social media
Oops.
policy.
Move to approve ordinance 2023-06, approving a social media policy.
Second.
So the motion by me, second by Pacharek. Any questions or comments? Ordinance, so we need a voice vote.
Commissioner Barrett?
Yes.
Commissioner Fry?
Yes.
Commissioner Me?
Yes.
Commissioner Pacharich?
Yes.
Commissioner Vyers?
Yes.
President Kelly?
Yes. Number 20, ordinance 2023-07.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 2023-07, approving and authorizing execution of a funding and reimbursement agreement for the construction of playground between the Wheaton Park District and the Play for All Playground and Garden Foundation.
Second.
So motion by Fry, second by Barrett. Any questions or comments?
Nope.
Mike, take the roll, please.
Commissioner Fry?
Yes.
Commissioner Me?
Yes.
Commissioner Pacharich?
Yes.
Commissioner Vyers?
Yes.
Commissioner Barrett?
Yes.
President Kelly?
Yes. New business item 21, Community Center Phase 2 Interiors. Need a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2023-10, approving the emergency expenditure of funds without competitive bidding for community center spa mechanical equipment replacement.
Second.
So a motion by Fry and a second by Barrett. Any questions or comments? No. Mike, take the roll.
Commissioner Me?
Yes.
Commissioner Pacharich?
Yes.
Commissioner Vyers?
Yes.
Commissioner Barrett?
Yes.
Commissioner Fry?
Yes.
President Kelly?
Yes. All right. It's been a long night, but we have reports from staff to review. Anybody, I'm just going to open it up. You guys can ask questions or comment on any of the reports that are in front of you.
I'm just going to start and preempt Terry.
I didn't jump in there.
I know.
No tabs on you.
He's got tabs.
I got
So
some
I'm
tabs.
just going to say thank you to everyone for all of the great work that you're doing, for all the successes that are in this document. Thank you. You have nothing left to say now.
I got whatever I want to say. John, you wanted to say
Should I
something?
acknowledge Terry or not?
No.
John, you wanted to say something?
No, I didn't.
Oh, I thought you did. Well, because we've had a somewhat lengthy meeting, but thanks for hanging around, I'm going to make it real quick. I applaud the Rams football, Dan, for their fundraising effort. You know, they're still still cranking it, still doing a good job. I thank them for that. The participation continues to increase year after year for our in-house basketball, Dan, so we're doing something right. Parks Plus, as of the end of October, Parks Plus memberships have increased by 300 since the start of 2023, so we're still doing good. I expect that to continue. Dan, you can pass that on to Alex, and I'll do so tomorrow. Cosley Zoo, as of the end of October, Cosley Zoo revenues were up by over 22,000 for the same period, for the period beginning Jan 1 through October, and up over 22,000 for the same period in 2022. Visitation for the period was also up over 2022. So once again, we're doing it. Got just, I think, 2 more, so then you won't kill me. Hang on. Andy, historical high for golf rounds in 2023. Up over 4,000 rounds for the, same period through October in 2022, so we're doing good. I think I got 1 more, and then we're done, or at least I'm done. I want to mention the reindeer run. The run actually starts at 8 a.m. Saturday morning outside the museum, so I'll be there. Margie, what kind of sign up we got so far?
Close to 1,100.
Do you remember what we had last year?
1,200.
Okay,
There's still time.
cool, good job. Thank you.
Anybody else? There's no
School session.
Mike has something.
I want to provide an acknowledgement to Rob's team, specifically Nick Novak's projects team and Paul Stanzik's operations team. They've been working very hard to get the ice rinks up and running, which are on schedule to be open this Friday. So I just wanted to provide that, that
Good
piece
work.
of gratitude to that team. And once it's open, they'll be maintaining it, and Dan's team will be taking over and running it for the benefit of the community. Thank you.
I wonder if we'll have any competition from Cantini's new rink.
We do not have any closed session required tonight, so I'll take a
to adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
Second.
What was that, Terry?
All in favor?
Motion. All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Thank you.